Fighting with the neighbors, screwing the wife. Hip-hop music ruined my life. I bitch and I moan, I lie and I cheat, waiting for the night when I die in my sleep. I listen to the jukebox and sit by the bar, taking care of a dog that got hit by a car, praying for salvation and needing a miracle, drowning in new music and reading material. Shoelaces untied, telling people I'm rich. Can't tell the difference of real art and high kitsch. Mouth like a broken bottle, crooked and bottomless. Half wolf, half crow, half hippopotamus. Sturdy as a paper bag as well, my face is flawed, but keeping the fire going by the grace of God. And I'm loath to think that we missed our chance to find a way out of this downward dance, and we got it all wrong. Nobody knows what I'm talking about. Lost without a marketing plan and a stylist. Here comes the vilest, nihilist, finalist. Once and for all, barbed wire and rope. The most beautiful woman is strung out on dope. Slowly the music died. 3 white horses side by side. Last chance to change, you better hurry quick. Lying in bed, wide awake and I'm worried sick. Completely outfoxed, I hide from the phone. And I swear this pen has a mind of its own. Jaws that go through solid steel, a clenched fist, a breath of fresh air for once, and a French kiss. The weight of the world, collapsible me. I'm talking about trouble with a capital T. We got it all wrong.
Let me tell you how this goes. Let me paint a little picture for you, show you the impossibles that I beat to get here, that I'm even breathing fresh air. Cause I've been grieving death after death, I'm petrified of what next year we're bringing. Yes, there, even more to deal with. You persevere through the fear and the feelings that come with awareness of who you are as a person, how you handle the damage that never seems to stop coming. You don't run, you stand with a damn fist in the air. I am here, never gonna stand down. The world is fucked up, yeah. How you gonna care now? I've been watching, I've been writing about it with my hands down on the paper, contemplating how it's gonna pan out. Do I even wanna know what the verdict is, or do I wanna watch the show? When it turns to shit, the world burns and keeps turning while I'm in the center of it, hoping there's enough time to show them my perspective of it.
Watch the whole world fall apart with a smile. Hope I got enough time, hoping I don't die alone. I won't die, I won't die. Is it out of my control, or can I change the road I'm on? Oh, better yet, everyone's destiny, I know. Yeah.
You're all sleeping while while I'm screaming fucking wake up. Hope I got your attention now, hope you're thinking the same stuff. Everyone's the same when it comes to dealing with pain, cause once you feel it enough it changes you, then you can't judge anybody for the way they act when under so much pressure. So the lesson is you gotta know the ledge before you catch them, cause that's a heavy load to bear, ain't it? I've been holding so much weight that I can hear the angels singing hymns and trying to warn me up the dangers aimed at my brain that devised the same trap that keep me chained at my ankles. Ain't that a fucking shame? Yeah, if I could change that, then I'd go way back and tell my young dumb face that if you could only seek your life the way it's gonna go, then you would know how precious time is and appreciate in front of you. Never let the moments pass, hold them like you know it lasts. Never die alone if you can hold them like a photograph.
Watch the whole world fall apart with a smile. Oh, hope I got enough time, hoping I don't die low. I won't die, I won't die. Is it out of my control or can I change the road I'm on? Oh, baby, everyone's destiny, I know. God even watch my soul. What am I destined to be? Am I the bird with the things? Or all the things that I keep on doing? Can't seem to stop me now. Oh, watch the whole world fall apart with a smile. Oh, I got enough time, hoping I don't die low. I won't die, I won't die. Is it out of my control or can I change the road I'm on? Oh, baby, everyone's destiny.
Blood satellite.
Whoa, what's up?
Hey.
Oh wow, Judas is here too.
Yeah.
Poppin',
Oh
big
yeah.
guy.
Who's that
Not much,
nasty
yeah.
boy? Who's that nasty boy down
No,
there?
no, hold on. No. Let's be nice. Come on now.
Wait, I am being nice. I mean, like a nasty boy is a term of endearment. Look at that shit covered
40 times
soot.
Oh no. You know what? Next time I gotta get a cool video on loop of something for the sacks. I gotta find a nice cool video like you guys so I can fit in too.
Yes. Do it.
Okay, we got a note here. Just got to bring this front and center just to show you what the people are asking for. Got behold here for trans dimes.
Oh no.
This is what I've been hearing. People are loving trans dimes. Remember, the problem with trans dimes is that the voice changer is too good. I think we talked about this last time, where like the original trans voice we did was just kind of shoddy and it actually sounded trans, and that it sounded just like a man, right? But these new ones are too effective and they just sound like an anime creature. Yeah. And so every single voice message you've ever gotten from a woman is now suspect. You don't know.
Yeah.
Right.
It's bad.
It's like all those VTubers, you know, I'm not in with the VTuber thing. I just learned out what that was like this year, right? Yeah. Those are all guys, right? Like all the anime.
They're all dudes. They're all weird fat dudes.
Yeah.
It has to be, right? Because if you were a woman, you would just be on camera. Every single one of them would be on camera.
What are they hiding?
Yeah.
They're hiding the fact that all of them look like Vosh or worse. That's what they're hiding.
We got Minone here. Dimes is now Diana. They missed trans dimes. See, he's sad he missed trans dimes. You haven't seen it yet. I really don't want to do it. I'm very uncomfortable doing that voice changer. I should have done it the first time. I've done it like 5 times, and that's Judas, you can tell Juice's voice gets real serious. He's like, no, please.
Yeah, it becomes post-ironic, and then we have to have an intervention.
Juice is like, I need to go. You've almost left the pod like a couple times when I've dallied with this before. Also, I just want to say hello to Sean Weiland in the chat, of course. One of my great nemesis, I'd say. We've had him on the show before. Interviewed Sean Weiland. Lovely guy. Wrote an article with him for the Vanguard Journal. A fantastic article. We get into a very heated argument once a month, and they're going to find our skeletal remains with my hands wrapped around his spine and him not fighting back and just doing the one finger up actually pose, because that's how he gets me. He doesn't get mad at me. This is completely one-sided. It's me getting mad at him and him being reasonable. Like, no, I think are you sure about that? And I don't know what it is, man.
Yep.
And then I get worked up into a lather. But he's like one of the only guys that can do that for me, and I'm glad he's still here. First post from him. Hey guys. Bill Wilson, spinal catastrophism. I was thinking about that the other day, laughing about how much I've talked about that fucking book, because if you think about it, we did it once on Blood Satellite. Then I did 3 episodes with Prudentialist on our sister show, which is titled Do You Even Read? And then it also came up when I was streaming with Last Things, which is 2 weeks ago. And I was overcome with this fear that this is just the thing I'm going to be known for.
Yeah, it's too much.
But I'm going to go and people just say, oh, yeah, you're the spinal catastrophism guy. And
no.
And now it's done.
Oh, no.
Making sure I got the sound effects going. We have sorry, continue. Go.
No, I wanted to ask you, because I've listened to the show for basically 2 years now. Okay. And what I've never understood, what is that audio clip that you play that starts with "It's been"? Like, what is that?
That's for the Bare Naked Ladies.
Oh no.
Remember, it's been
yeah.
Some deep late 90s cuts.
Yeah. And I don't know why that just, for guys my age, when the Bare Naked Ladies were a band that people would hear on the radio, that just burrowed into my mind. And I just thought that's a sound bite, and I just never stopped using it.
That was one of like a dozen songs I had on my 8 megabyte MP3 player.
You had that on your MP3 player, you psycho. What the fuck are you talking about?
Yeah, man, and Smash Mouth.
With the blue LEDs that like turn off. Yeah. Like after a week of owning it.
I like the idea that Judas is just getting songs that you can easily hear on the radio, but on it, burning them to MP3 CDs.
Well, it's a novelty. You know, you're like, fuck it. I was like, what, 9 years old? So
yeah, you had Bob Cajun by Tragically Hip, which you can hear every 15 minutes on any radio station. Here comes old standard Judas.
Nobody told me I could just listen to the radio. Sorry.
240p digital sound files.
Yes.
Oh yeah, we got behold here, chicken and China out the Chinese chicken. Here's the problem with Bare Naked Ladies: all their songs run together. Those might be the same song. I know there's like Pinch Me, and then there's like 4 songs that were, I don't know if they ever went outside of Canada, but those are like the top songs.
Yeah,
and they're just gone. You don't hear them anymore. Remember, I saw like a mini documentary on them. And they're like, oh, why'd you pick that name? They're like, well, we were touring around and we thought if we name ourselves Bare Naked Ladies, you'll see that up on the marquee. And then people would be drawn into that. And I was just laughing at that. I don't know if you believe that or not, but if it's like, if there's a guy just driving like, oh, there's Bare Naked Ladies in there, I better fucking veer my van over and run in. Shut up, Canadian band. That was like an old, like kind of a Gen X belief, which is like, oh man, if you just free sex, remember that fucking, there's that old commercial. This is another Canadian thing. It was for some pizza chain. It was like, and the whole joke was the number was whatever, free sex. And on the commercial, I go, not 7 3 free sex.
I remember that.
There was all this idea. I'm like, who is this archetype? Who's this guy who's just out there saying, man, I can go for some fucking naked ladies. I can go for some sex. He's on the hunt.
Hey, you're talking about it though, aren't you? It was like a pizza place, and they had like a goofy British guy on the ad. It was a radio ad too. It was just a radio ad, I think.
Yeah,
but I mean, we're fucking talking about it. That was 15 years ago at least.
It's true. I've really shown my ass right out the gate on this one. Got Carl Habermas over here. Got a question. Didn't read this question beforehand. Let's get through it together. Is culture critique recommended? Couldn't get past the first 20 pages when McDonald sincerely says Jews succeeded due to their dazzling verbal skills. Well, I mean, dazzling is subjective. Anytime I hear the word dazzling, I assume, you can be dazzled by all kinds of things. I can be dazzled by mundane things. Culture critique. Have you read that, Judas? We covered that, like one of the maybe first 3 books we covered on the show all those years ago was Culture Critique. It was that and the Bell Curve. And I think the third might have been Evola. It might have been Revolt Against the Modern World. And then that snowballed into the tragedy we have before us today. But I think it's good. But as far as Kevin McDonald goes, he's got a pretty large corpus of books. He'd be great to have on, actually. Not a lot of people have him on, but he's like really good on the mic and he's good to talk to. And as far as I know, his books have pretty academic rigor about them. So yeah, if you can get through it. It makes a solid case as far as I'm concerned. But that's the second, I think, of a trilogy he did. And I haven't read the other 2. Got Nero here saying, I heard naked ladies. It worked on them.
Yeah, he just joined. He heard it at a distance and joined the chat.
Yeah. So we actually have a kind of a through line of topics on this episode that I wanted to get to, but there's just a bit of show related news I want to talk to at the start. This is an epilogue to something we've covered quite some time ago. It's regarding Lauren Southern. Canada's Lauren Southern. Just a quick edition of a segment that we like to call Bitch Watch.
Bitch Watch.
And I had to get them background music going there. Sorry, I totally forgot to get that going. So Bitch Watch, it has just been confirmed for those who've been following this, that Lauren Southern did in fact sleep with Destiny, the live
Oof.
streamer. You know about him, right, 40?
Oh yeah, of course.
So to me, that they were denying that up and down the entire time, and people are saying, who cares a shit about Lauren Southern? Why are we talking about Lauren Southern? The people do, which is why we're doing it. And I think we've been the tip of the spear on this developing story of Lauren Southern being a filthy whore. And I think we owe it to the people to follow this up. Because to me, if this has been proven, it's proven by one of her insiders. I'm not going to go through the entire thing, but it's been outed by a lot of the insiders in their circles, because all these fucking big streamers, they have entire villages working for them. And 40, this is something for you to keep in mind as you're on your fucking nonstop rocket to the top right now. Eventually, you're going to need to get a clique of sycophants, and that's just the first circle. Then the outer circle is all of these just a universe unto itself. See, me, I just thought you get in front of a mic and you just barf wisdom, but I just thought the Kino Casino had a writer's room on Discord. Like, I don't know how this. I don't know what the fuck's going on. I
skipped that step. We went straight to just having a chat room full of guys who call dimes gay.
Yeah, well, that's a bit, because they don't really believe that. They're just trying to get a rise on me, and they're trying to pump up Judas coin. They're trying to inflate it, and so joke's on you, because it's the invisible hand of the market, suppressing the heterosexuality of the people's host. I might not be the most beloved, but I am the most people-ish.
So what's the actual news on Lauren? Did she admit any of this, or you said it's just
she didn't admit it? It was one of these people who's privy to the insider knowledge, like a friend of them, and they got chat logs that they leaked, that because all these people, all they do is spend all day on Discord.
Yeah,
all they do is send DMs, and then without taking the rake to that and going through it, it was basically proven. So to me, if that was proven and they denied everything, then they're all proven.
Yeah.
Because the rumor was that she had slept with pretty much everyone except us in what was known as the alt-right. Like, I've never fucked Lauren Southern, and so that's why we're on the periphery.
We're the actual purebloods over here. We have no
what I can tell you is that this news was absolutely devastating to the 17-year-old at heart community. And a lot of disappointed guys in the chat who are like, "Oh no, I can't! How could you betray me, Lauren?"
Also,
my love.
I always say, how is it that we have so many incels on our side when we have some of the biggest whores in the history of Earth over here? I mean, just statistically, 3 right-wing women sexually accounts for like 20,000 regular women. And
Destiny himself is like a weird dysgenic midget cuck.
Yeah.
So it's not hard to beat Destiny.
I want to pull up a picture of him just so people see. Yeah. Now,
make it a good picture. Let's play fair. I mean,
the one on the beach is probably the best photo he has.
I've seen that.
Now, you're going to say Google is trying to tell me that Destiny is, in fact, a girl's name, but I'm going to try and find it here. Okay, so we're looking at Destiny streamer here. This is his press photo. This one we're looking at right here. Just a dead-eyed. You'd say, this is an autistic man.
A turtle in a man's skin.
Anytime you see a photo like this, you think, well, this is one of 20 that they took, and this is the best one.
Straight out of the Oblivion character creator.
Yes. I'm trying to find, because I'm getting just that game Destiny here too, but so you look at a guy like him, and this is going to sound like me pumping him up, but you're like, wow, this guy seems to get around, right? Yeah. This is a guy that, I'm looking at under his profile here. It just says liberalism in the United States.
What the fuck? Wikipedia, why?
No, because he's a lib. He's one of the last.
Everybody's a fucking lib. Like,
no. Here's the thing. people are liberals, but they'll deny it up and down because they want to be trendy. He's one of the very few guys that is openly, vehemently a liberal, maybe aside from Richard Spencer, like a guy who's just really into NATO.
Yeah.
Because even people who are pro-American, like the most diehard patriotic Americans, they'll hate, all that stuff. But he loves all the gay parts of America, but hates all the Dixie stuff and hates all that shit. So, and I kind of had some respect for him because that's not an easy guy to be, especially these days. You would think that he would lie about just being a leftist, like Hassan Piker or one of these guys, but no. He's just like, he really loved Kamala Harris, and I believe he did. And not because of any identity-based stuff. I just think he looked at her and said, here's a cocksucking bureaucrat, and that's what I like.
Yep. There he is.
I got to get this off my screen. Yeah. Remember that? Remember, Brad?
How astroturfed it was? Yeah.
I'm not letting people live that down because there's some people. I remember Nick Fuentes and others were like, "Yeah, Brad, that's a thing we're saying now." I'm like I've been saying it ever since then, and now people are annoyed with me. But really, just remember when they tried to be like, "Yeah, look at that cool young bitch, Kamala Harris." You know what I saw? I saw a fucking video. It's this whole series run by a photographer, like a career photographer, who's dealt with all these celebrities, and he just tells stories about the various celebrities and even politicians he's photographed before, just telling what they were like. And one of the worst ones he ever did was Hillary Clinton. And if you look at the photo he took, there's like this one famous photo where she's all bug-eyed and tense and strange, and that's the one he took. And anyway, it was just. You hear stories about dealing with these people from like the service industry or just they're freelancers, and they're like, oh yeah, they never look you in the eyes, and but they steal food. Hillary Clinton and like Kamala Harris, they strike me as someone that would shoplift still.
Yeah.
Wouldn't that be funny if Hillary Clinton was just shoplifting out there? Like you can't do anything about that. If you see Hillary Clinton shoplifting, you might as well kill yourself because whatever's coming down the pike at you is going to be 10 times worse than slitting your wrists.
Yeah. They do actually arrest her, but then Kamala lets her out on like $100 bail. Unreal.
I like it if they were a bit more openly corrupt. What I liked with Hillary Clinton when she was just a psychopath who was drone striking people, I'm like, you know what? That's what you are. You're a warmongering lady who got cheated on, and that's your power. Now you have a slave husband, and there's a lot of women who want a slave husband. There's a demographic, and they've never been represented. Just like a dumb, slutty guy, and now you cut his balls off, and he has to walk around until he dies like that, and then you get to just, I don't know, blow up whoever, and you know what I mean? Just
no, I don't. I'm not following you at all, but I like all of the keywords. I'm there, slave, husband.
You heard slave.
You're hitting all the Pavlovian
Coles notes. Yeah.
I heard slave. I heard balls. I heard assassinate. I'm in it.
Yeah, you got like half of my trigger words here. We're good.
All right, so 40. One of the reasons we want to bring you on, despite that we just love your company, and we've had you on the show before, and people can look up that interview, but we wanted to talk about Indian stuff, just a couple of things. And you have been working very diligently in many different areas on this topic. Now, the first time I would see you in that sphere is you would just be popping into X spaces, hosted at various times, often populated by everyone from political candidates to other influencers, and on the topic of Indian mass migration into Canada. And you were really front and center, like debating with these people. And if you could talk about that for just a moment, if people haven't been exposed to that yet.
Yeah, it's been a wild experience. A lot of interesting perspectives coming from them. There's a lot of weird dynamics going on in many of those spaces. Like you'll get the odd Indian defending, Canadian ethnic nationalism. You'll get a situation where they're trying to suggest Brampton should be independent, that it should split off from Ontario and form its own province because it's basically theirs. You get Punjabis with American flags coming into the chat, pretending that they're just asking questions and they're just inquiring. They're just being an honest person asking questions like, why hasn't the Canadian government gone after Hindu assassins and so, and they're pretending they live in the States, but they're actually Canadians in Toronto.
Yeah.
And then if you call them out on that, they get angry with you and basically fess up that they're Canadian or that they live in Canada. So it's been very interesting. It's weird. They're trying to play all sides. And what's really frequent, the most common thing that I've experienced in those spaces is that they will point fingers. They'll come in, they'll point fingers, they'll say, look what this group did, look what these guys did. And then if you call them out, you're just like, okay, but like both Khalistanis and Hindustanis are doing this right now. They're like, no, it's these guys. It's like, no, but I just saw you marching down my street with yellow flags, like your entire community. So what is it, right? Like,
one question, quick comment here from Behold. There was that Freemasonic Islamic Sikh Canadian patriot. I don't know who that is. So, Behold, if you could link that, give a name or provide a link, and we could look into that as well. That's an interesting type of guy to know about. Also, there was a comment I posted on here. Someone just put, Sean Schaefer posted Himbo Clinton. Just wanted to call back to that. That's a good one. Also, with 40 mentioning Brampton there before. I think we've talked about Brampton in the past. That is a city in Ontario that has, Christ, I don't know what this one, like 80% Indian population.
Yeah.
And that was the city, if people recall, that had that massive statue of that strange animal god.
Hanuman.
Let me just see if I can pull that up here so people can see.
And for context, we talk about it being a city. It's not really. It's a it's 20 years ago. It was a subdivision for warehouse workers by Pearson Airport. And of course, these warehouse workers, largely Indian, started, colonizing the fucking place. So now, even though it's part of the GTA, it doesn't have its own government or anything. Like they have their own council, but it's become like its own place. But if you look at it on a map, it's the airport, tons of fucking busted ass rail yards and urban blight, and these shitty townhouses and like it's awful. It's just it's the worst of North American civil planning, which is just perfect for what it is.
Jeets in Brampton, or should we say Bramladesh these days, because that's really what it is. But Jeets in Brampton end up getting busted all the time for harboring people, like more than like 4 people in houses.
Yeah,
like this is the subdivision of Toronto where people get busted living mattress to mattress on the floor, and like 14 people in a 1-bedroom. Or there was another instance where they found a wall had been taken down connecting to the adjacent house. And they just do this, and they live in bunks. They live in like military-style bunks that are filthy and disgusting.
So people see the statue there right now. We've been looking through. For the people just listening to the audio, you are looking at a monkey man. That is the tail, but it's just a flesh-colored, a man's flesh-colored tail, which is an unnerving sight. Not covered in any sort of fur. And it looks like he's waving hello. I don't know what that means in Indian, but they have a fence. They have a fence around it because I assume there's been enough our guys going there, just hurling detritus at it. But it is like a claiming of the territory. And this is but one example of many where it's the protests, it's the statues, it's like you had mentioned, openly calling for Brampton to separate in some sense, which is the most predictable thing in the world. People like us have been calling that for years and years, saying, well, I mean, if there's like 70% of one type of person, why wouldn't they call for that to be, a separate thing? And the entire time we're called bigots or unrealistic for saying that. But I don't know if the people just didn't want to believe that would happen or couldn't. I think in some sense they can't understand why that matters.
It's not hypocrisy, right? Because it'd only be hypocrisy if they were being honest about their principles, that it's, nobody gets to have their own ethnic space because that's racist. Well, the actual principle is just anti-white. right? Fundamentally, they really don't care if anybody else does it except us, because it isn't about anti-racism. Genuinely, it's about anti-whiteness. So
another thing for me that's incredibly frustrating is that you try to explain this to people outside of the Canadian context, and they do not understand the degree of wealth, power, and influence that these people have in certain areas in Canada.
Yes.
And also the certain industries that they control, because they're going to blame it. They will usually try to blame it on other groups, but it's like, no, like these groups possess their own agency in their crimes and atrocities against Canadians.
Yes.
And they're operating independently, completely independently, against the interest of those other groups in this country. It's a total free-for-all up here.
That's one thing I bring up all the time, because we got this weird situation where there's, on the one hand, you have Indians coming in with the Lima and with these visas where they're like going in and working at Tim Hortons, and they're living 15 to a room in squalor. And that's one thing. And that is kind of comparable to like the southern border in the US, the issue they're having with South Americans. But the other side of it is India is like a sixth of the world's population. And from an economic standpoint, they dwarf Canada. Like, they're way bigger than Canada. And a lot of Indians come here with extreme wealth, buy their way in, and then buy up whole sections of towns to do with whatever the fuck they want. Like, we were just out driving the other day going to pick something up, and we were going through the countryside, and we found huge, like, two beautiful manors, both of them apparently bought out by the same Indian family, because they'd split the property open and were having a big Indian wedding with like 1,000 people. And these are like old, like
that's like all their cousins. That's all
Canadian
it is.
Manors and orchards and everything that you'd expect to see, old Canadian old stock families, but it's literally all Indians, and they got their fucking decorations up and the whole works. So like the money coming from them is insane. And like you say, they control entire industries here now.
And I think that's what's shocking to people. Like you said, if you explain this to Americans, perhaps even Europeans, although I think Europeans can perhaps understand it more, people don't really know how money functions. I remember we had made the money functions coming in the Indian context. We kind of have an idea of how money and capital flows occur from China into Canada. We've covered that on the show in the past. We're somewhat familiar with the organized crime element. We're somewhat familiar with, all these other groups, but Indians knew. And when you think about Indians, you think, oh, these are just like poor workers. You don't know what a wealthy Indian, what they're bringing, where they're getting their money from. I don't know what the dynastic families are. I don't really know much about the government. So they're a big black box, and we don't really, and I say we, I mean very broadly, white people, old stock Canadians, however you want to phrase it. We don't really have a grasp on the Indian caste system, and this is something we've pointed to before, even with Vivek Ramaswamy over there in America. I remember getting wind of some social media posts from other Indians calling into question his claims of being from one caste. And he was lying in some sense about what caste he was from. And then other Indians could tell. But I'm like, that's a weird lie to tell. What's going on here? I don't understand this. Yeah. I don't know how these castes interlock. I don't know why one would lie. Something's going on I don't understand. And I think most people are blind to that, and they don't have... I think they have a distaste for the rapidity that the Indian mass migration has happened, but I really don't think they have a comprehension of like how deep these familial ties go and how business is conducted and all that shit. So I think they think they're just like a dumb problem. That's what I'm thinking. But I'm like, no, there's a real pointed, acute issue here that's being manipulated by some very intelligent organizations in India. What do you think about that?
Well, I mean, it's true, and what's clear to me, like I have open in front of me right now the article on the Komagata Maru incident, and I have the continuous journey regulation. And
you might be able to share that too. If you look on the bottom, there might be a share screen if you wanted to do that. I'm not saying you have to, but you might be able to do that, or you can pass it to me in the chat and I could kind of pull it up if you'd like. Oh, we got just a comment here while you're doing that from White Wellbeing. Brampton is an example of the Indian biospiritual expression and numerical courage to racially dominate an area of civic multiracial society. And that's something you'll notice I've dealt with over the past year. I've come into contact with quite a few Muslim nationalists, but also some Indian nationalists. It's a strange phenomena that I see them in Florida. You would have encountered this guy. He was popping up in one of your X spaces. You're with Ferryman's Toll, and there's like this Indian guy that shows up, and he's open about how he's not white, and he's got all these guys have so many recommendations for white people about how they can recover their vitality. But I swear to God, if you keep them talking for more than 5 minutes, it always, and this has happened to me 4 or 5 times, it always turns into them saying like white people deserve to be raped to death.
Yes.
There's some kind, I've never encountered this before where they're like, you're trying to help me, but you're also here because you like the idea of me being raped. I don't know what this is. I don't get it. Anyway, if you wanted to tell that story too.
Yeah, it was a really weird dynamic. This dude, he's obviously some kind of North American Indian diaspora, some kind of second gen or first gen or something like that, like the kids of immigrants. I think they follow my Substack. I'm not entirely sure, but anyway, he rolls up and he's like, yeah, and he's chastising one of the pro-Canadian Indians, which was hilarious. Like there was a PPC, pro People's Party of Canada Jeet in there, and he was like, "Why are you being a race communist? Why are you being a cuck and all this?" I was like, "Okay." He called him a race communist. I was like, "All right, well, like he obviously he's been around dissident right circles, right?" But yeah, he just basically said, "Yeah, I'm a Sikh nationalist." He was asked by one of the Patriot guys in the chat. He was like, "If Canada goes to war, would you fight for it?" And he's like, "Who are we fighting?" And I was like, "Yeah, that's the appropriate question that a nationalist would ask, right?" But the problem is, juxtaposed to the Canadian situation, he's obviously an enemy. Like there's no situation where that context can be ingratiated with Canada. Yeah. So anyway, he dips out, but it was just a very weird circumstance, and there's a ton of these guys. There's like a ton of these dudes. But what I wanted to touch on is...
Can I just say one more thing before you go on from there? Another thing I noticed that's somewhat related to that, and we're just talking about a larger topic that maybe even deserves its own talk, but it's the incursion of Indians into identitarian spaces, especially white identitarian spaces. And someone had pointed out that there's all these accounts on X and also Telegram that are complaining about white women or complaining about women. Yeah. But all the examples tend to be white women, and like 9 times out of 10, they're run by Indian guys. And again, I'm looking at this like, what's going on here? There's something happening, something strange. Like you're obviously trying to broker your proximity to this space, but you're doing it through our subjugation. And at what part are you kind of getting off on? You know what I mean? Because also with the Indians, you get the thing where like, okay, I get you've learned the rules. You're kind of like in the very soul of your civilization, you're bureaucrats. You like learning rules and then being drones for rules. So you just applied that to like a right-wing identitarian context. So you say the words, but I'm like, there's something creepy going on here. That's always fucking creepy. Sorry, I think I cut you off there.
No, they're always subverting. They're always trying to worm their way into some dynamic like that. It's very strange. And I was gonna say, it's not entirely unprecedented, as you have the Kamagata Maru incident up here. And if you scroll through that, like anyone can read this, and it's the same with the continuous journey regulation. Basically, this guy, Gurdeep Singh.
I'm telling you, like, you could be forgiven, people, for thinking we're just making up these names. like I'm at a loss. Like when you make up another race's name, it's usually funny but unrealistic. We've got nothing on their real names when you hear them. I just learned that like Gurdeep is a woman's name. That's fucking hilarious. Sorry, continue.
No, so this dude, Gurdeep Singh, was part of the Gadar Party, right? Which is a union of Hindus and Sikhs from India who spread out across the British Empire to build capital, wealth, and resources so that they could fund Indian independence from the British, right? Eventually, this group would split into two, but not before this dude tried to get around the continuous journey regulation by hopping on a steamship in Japan and then heading to Vancouver in BC. On his way there in Hong Kong, he was arrested for selling tickets for an illegal voyage. So absolutely nothing has changed. He was still trying to scam his countrymen access to steamships heading around the world. So like from the very get-go, and then he tried to bypass the continuous journey regulation by going to Canada. He knew he was breaking the rules. He was aware of it.
Yeah.
So what I'm trying to say is the very first contact, or one of the very first contacts with Sikhs, with Punjabis, with South Asians, is them literally trying to be illegal immigrants.
Yeah.
Literally trying to subvert Canadian law so that they can worm their way somewhere and then start working. Absolutely nothing has changed in 130 years.
It's part of their culture.
And you raised a good point here, and I'd heard about the continuous journey regulation, and when you hear the phrase anti-Oriental or Asian, what jumps to mind is Chinese immigration, because you're probably used to hearing that from America. But reading your coverage of it and looking into it myself, I said, oh, this seemed to be mainly about Indians, and they just got grouped in there.
Jews cannot resist living with whites so much that 130 years ago they were scamming Canadian immigration law to move here.
Look at this guy. Look at him. the portrait of this man on screen right now.
He's from Budge Budge. This fucking guy's from Budge Budge.
Budge. What is going on in
Dr.
India?
Seuss shit. You can't even make this up. I mean, Dr. Seuss could, I guess.
It's situated on the east banks of the
Hooghly River. This is great. I love it.
Like
it's so colorful.
It is like a Dr. Seuss reality they live in.
What if you just wake up and find out it was all a myth? It was all a children's cartoon. None of these people are real.
You know, just the other day I was kicking myself forever thinking India was cool, because as a white man, you are prone to, looking, you're got the Faustian spirit. You want to explore the world and just get slaves for the heck of it. And there's something mysterious about India. There's perfumed, but then you start to think, no, you get the Google Maps going, then you drop a pin and you say, what's literally any square foot of India look like? And it's just trash everywhere. However, if what I'm hearing is true, and you go down there, it is a Dr. Seuss world. I step off the plane, I'm seeing a corn car. I'm talking a car made out of a cob of corn. Just so people understand, when you have a child at my son's age, around a year and 9 months, you read a lot of Dr. Seuss. And you see him slip little things in. There was an image in the book I was reading, best word book ever, and there's just a bear burning leaves he was raking. And I'm like, that's from a better era. That's when you could just burn fucking leaves. Then you turn the page, there's a koala bear riding an apple car. What the heck?
This is India?
Yes, what am I reading, a book on India? Talking about child. Dad. What is this, fucking India? What the fuck?
There's a really interesting list of books banned in India, and they're banned specifically because they delve into this. And they're usually
the number one books. There's a book of pictures of toilets.
I haven't gone into it. Someone in my chat sent the file for Land of the Lingam, and this is kind of a breakdown of some British or American guy's experiences in India, and he's describing like Hindu rituals 100 and something years ago. And it's really interesting, but it's a banned book because it's like, this just tells you the straight facts, right?
There's this one book that I bought from my favorite used bookstore, hardcover book, very large, it's like 900 pages, and it's called something like The Wonder That Was India, and I think it might even be written by a Muslim guy, but it's supposed to be the entire history of India from fucking prehistory up until now. It goes back very, very far. And I was going to cover that when we did our arc on our what I called our barbarian arc, but we talked about the Huns, we talked about the Mongols and whatnot, and it was going to fit in there. It didn't make sense in there, and I really want to cover it now, and because I want to hear the story of how they got from, I guess, the Neanderthals up to now. So maybe we can find something in their DNA, because I think a lot of people correctly They correctly identify that there's something in this culture that is incongruent with Western culture, very broadly Western culture. Let's just call it that. Even though, if you are a fellow traveler in our space, you're probably well versed on the Indo-European mythology. You probably go very, very deep on sort of the overlap between, you know, you've probably talked about Samsara a couple of times. You probably know what the Kali Yuga is. Like if you're in this thing of ours, you probably borrow more from Indian mythology than you'd like to think, especially if you're into Evelyn, especially if you're into the Theosophists. So I try and consciously segregate that from my everyday life, because they will say that the Indo-European soul is intertwined and you must borrow liberally, especially if you get into like the weird esoteric shit about into Hyperborea and all that. It's very easy to cross over into a lot of that Indian mythology. So I've stepped a bit further away from that. I know there's probably some mythologists and theologists out there that say, oh, I read it wrong, but that was just my overview of it when we covered it there. But anyway, I don't like any of that stuff. I don't like any of their mythology. It rubs me the wrong way. And I know Judas hates all that stuff just out of hand because he thinks it's gay nerd stuff. But
Yes.
once again, Judas is vindicated by not reading.
Judas coin is rising.
Okay, I think we can all agree after close to 300 episodes of Blood Satellite, you've never lost anything from not reading.
I don't think so.
What's a single thing you've lost?
Anyway.
Yeah, what's the fucking single thing that you've lost?
My virginity, because if I had been reading, I'd probably yeah.
I've got one from a quote here. You cannot come up with their society, no matter how dystopian and dysgenic. You are trying to make a fictional race. And also, Larger Potato says the only thing mysterious about India is the diseases. You know, anytime you learn about any country, it just gets worse. Unless it's like a European country. The more I learn about Italy, the better it gets. The more I learn about America, the better it gets. But the more I learn about South Korea, my God. Yeah. Like you see you think of Seoul, you think of Gangnam Style, you think of the lady boys that they seem to worship over there. And you're thinking, well, that's not filthy, and you know. But then you see these photos outside of Seoul, and it's just this sea of like favelas and barrel fires and shit. You're like, what is going on? And then North Korea starts to look a lot, at the very least, you know, lateral, but perhaps even better. And then you learn about China, right? You learn about, okay, Hong Kong itself is pretty sketchy, but go 100 miles out and it's Mad Max, right? Like how much of the world is just a fucking nightmare? And Judas, you were in China. Like, would that be a correct assessment?
Yeah, man, it's insanity. Like even Hong Kong, like the gleaming pearl of the Orient, is kind of all right in the downtown, and the rest of it is literally the quintessential dystopian anti-human backdrop that people use for like fucking title cards about misery, right? That's most and that literally does, like we did a drive one time to visit somebody's uncle up in the territory, not even the territories, actually in mainland China, because you can drive straight there. We drove, I think, 4 fucking hours. Half the time you couldn't see more than 100 meters because of the smog and pollution. And it was alternating between concrete slums and like feral animals and then the rice paddies. But the rice paddies are all full of fucking plastic and like, it's just, you know, it's like the recent Blade Runner film. Like the farming at the beginning, it's like it's farmland, but it's mostly like gravel and worms. That's South China. Yeah,
yeah. And you hear these stories about like Haiti, and they're eating cats and dogs in Haiti, and I'm like, yes, of course, Haiti's probably one of the worst places in the world. Make no mistake, they're eating cats and dogs everywhere, and like it seems that 70% of the world's habitable surface is people necklacing each other with tires and fires, and like fucking throwing their kids into rivers just for the heck of it.
Yeah. Calling it the human condition is stretching the definition of human.
You guys know, that situation with the Jeet dying in the walk-in oven's kind of suspicious for the reason.
Yeah, here's just to get back to that. We covered that on a previous episode, and our assessment was that the more you learn about that, the more suspicious it obviously is. Once you realize it could not possibly be an error of the oven, or it even seems like human error was impossible. So this is just a typical Indian story where it's like something weird is going on here, but no one's talking about it.
Lieutenant came out and said it's definitely not a murder. It's like, what a oddly specific thing to say.
Yeah, okay, it's definitely not a murder. Are you saying but it is manslaughter, right? What's this sleight of hand you're doing right now?
Yeah.
Just to get the latest update, I am searching for Indian woman oven. I'm hoping there's just one story.
Do you have more info on that?
Suspicious. Oh, I was just gonna say suspiciously, the mourning statements of the parents is that they're bringing another family member to Canada with the money that they're raising or something like that.
Oh, fuck off!
I'm dead serious. Look it up right now.
Oh, she was a sacrifice.
Holy shit!
Dude, that actually makes so much sense. That's them, and that's them all over.
You know
exactly.
what?
Like you have a retarded daughter. Let's just cook her alive, get money from the Fed to bring our better daughter over from Budge Budge.
I'm gonna. Did anyone say? Did anyone in Walmart say it must smell crazy in that oven right now? But really though, like that's the story I'm going with. I'm choosing that this was some kind of green card sacrifice. This was some kind of something weird, something where human life was deemed just at less than a cockroach or equal to a cockroach. A death of the most reprehensible. Think of the worst, honestly. I don't know that many, but think of like the worst like criminal neo-Nazi you can think of, who hates nothing more than blacks, right? Hates nothing more than Jews. Do you think they would actually put a live one in an oven? I bet they wouldn't. I know that's something that people would joke about. I'm like, you know what? I bet they would think that was too reprehensible. That was too disgusting of behavior to do. And I'm trying to imagine like the worst of the worst, right? But compared to just like a regular Indian Walmart worker, apparently.
Behold's comment is awful, but it's funny.
Let me hold here. Okay, well, we gotta talk about rotisserie preet. Let me just say, we have crossed the line into something ghoulish, but that's why you watch this show. Look, we've given it enough time. We've shed our tears. We've stared into the sunset. We've searched our souls. Now, I'm sorry, these names just write themselves. Mm-hmm. You guys get some better names that don't lend themselves to morbid humor like this.
Mm-hmm. So, what else is interesting about this is that obviously there's not a chance in hell that if this is indeed what happened, the Canadian media is not going to report on it. Like, absolutely not. Exactly. There's no way that CBC, CTV, Toronto Star, Vancouver Sun, any of these other news organizations are going to report on Indians killing each other to sponsor more of their families to come to Canada.
Just a couple of comments here from Larger Potato. Imagine getting fucking honor killed in a Taj Mahal mart. Which, yes, exactly. And also Carl Habermas with a question. Would you guys have Devin Stack on? I'd have Devin Stack on in a heartbeat. I've invited him on some time ago. We follow each other on X. I know he's a very busy guy. He's got his own show to prepare. But for what it's worth, we'd love to have Devin Stack on. Who does not like Blackpilled? Oh, we got censored on. Look at this link now. Did not provide a link. So
where's the link, CA?
Chat, okay. Is this real?
It's going to be feet.
It better, if this is feet, I swear to God. We're outing everyone today. We already talked about your trip to France, Fortisax, by the way. I gave them the highlights. I don't know if you caught that episode where I gave my... You know what? Now that you're here, just a quick sidebar. We both went to Paris within like a month of each other.
Yeah.
This guy came back typical dissident rightist talking about how, oh, they live life right over there. This is what the rule. Anytime one of our guys goes to literally any European country, I don't care if it's fucking Northern Italy. I don't care if it's a Hungarian airport. They come back saying they do it right over there.
Listen, I don't know. Look, I don't know. There's something about the je ne sais quoi.
It's the joie de vivre is what you're saying.
Yes, there's a joie de vivre in France.
In a lot of ways, it's the jouissance. You know what? While we're on the topic, we've set up this topic pretty good. I wanted to look at this Substack here, and I was reading this earlier. This is a fascinating Substack, and I think it really recontextualizes a lot of what we've been talking about. This is from Strange Loop Canon. It's written, from the looks of it, by an Indian, giving us what's this? What's this Amazon like? I don't know if I like this. Building God. What's that about?
Kit.
You know,
it's not AI. Oh no, it's an Indian who wrote an AI book. Oh no. Okay,
I got the link from CA. I'm putting it in the chat right now.
Okay.
Chat, is this real?
It's real.
Oh my god.
The world's okay.
I thought it was gonna be like something real is happening. I mean,
this is something. Watch the world's tallest and shortest women meet for afternoon tea in London. First of all, what are two women talk about?
Thanks, CA. This is great.
You need to look at this now. That is a rough looking woman. Oh my god, what are we looking at here?
Man, that's
okay. We can hear this, right?
Yeah, I can hear it.
What's the thing from the Goonies? That's kind of what she looks like.
Okay, let's get ready for this voice. Is she that? Okay, she's as taller than the door frame, I guess. But damn, you see what I'm talking about here? Look at those feet. You know what I mean? Like he can't.
So many chromosomes in this baby.
He can fit so many slaps her fucking hood.
Oh.
Oh
no.
They're not even saying anything. They're just their shattered minds are just glaring at each other, aren't they? Like, I need to hear this voice though.
मुझे टॉलिस गर्ल से मिलके बहुत अच्छा लगा और उनको मैंने फर्स्ट टाइम मिली और उनका नेचर भी बहुत अच्छा है.
Oh man, imagine.
There's no way.
Imagine being that.
That's crazy.
That's a chipmunk voice. Okay, we got to hear this large woman's voice.
बहुत अच्छा लगा.
Shut up.
I realized me and Jody have a lot of.
Oh, there.
No. No. We gotta get Johnny Monoxide in here. This is not a woman. Right?
I'm pretty sure this was a mission in Red Dead 2.
Okay, look, I'm sorry, but like as a gamer, this is something you're trained to kill, to fight. If you see this out there, you're reaching for you're looking for a quick time event to happen in a second.
This could also be a bonus skin.
This is what the real Neanderthals look like. When you hear the legend about how the Neanderthals were furry and stalked humans as predators, that's what you're looking at right now.
Let me just say, this is, if I'm just looking at this objectively, this is like a peak male form. You know what I mean? Like, look at that. Remove if this was just a guy, you'd be like, okay, this is a badass, fucking Hitler's top guy type. You know what I mean?
The world's tallest woman is Hitler's top guy. I love it. It's perfect.
Okay, and also the name I'm looking at is Rumisi. Like, is that also an Indian name? What is going on here? That is a man with an Indian's name pretending to be a woman, and the Guinness Book of World Records is here and only given one world record. There has to be another one in here somewhere. That is a lazy. This is just a broken human.
We must love self-care, makeup, doing our nails,
That's a trans thing to say, by the way. That's not a thing a woman says. Like, we love slumber parties. We love, waking up in our lingerie. Not afraid not. Don't fucking piss on my coat and tell me that's woman's piss.
Like I want to believe. I was just gonna say I want to believe they're using like voice editors to like hide their true voice.
It'd be funny. They use the voice modulator, but don't hide their fucking faces. So it's just the thing they use on those crime shows when they're just a silhouette. But it's like, yeah, I also have your name here, you fucking freak. You just make sure not to use my real voice. Give him give him this fucking voice mod thing. Give him a woman's voice here.
She actually has a very feminine, alluring voice in real life, and they just had to make it even worse by doing that.
As I gotta check the comments to see what we're looking at here. Censor on seems he understands that that's not a woman. Larger Potato says it sounds like a name born next to Chernobyl. That could be true. I might have just gotten like an Eastern European name mixed with an Indian name. I'm gonna be paying for that one later. Oh yeah, he says looks like Wallace from Wallace and Gromit. Now I'm not going to be able to watch Wallace and Gromit clips anymore, and I watch a few. All right, so I'm gonna go back to this fucking thing here. I just liked this for the title originally, but as I read it, it really illuminated what I think to be is the Indian mind writ large. And this is from an Indian. So I think, we've covered a lot of the best insight on Indians. We've gone from Indian writers before. So It's Life in India is a series of bilateral negotiations. Subtitle, okay. You're going to love this. Finding the new equilibrium for the next superpower. Ooh, I love it.
Superpower by 2020.
Also, Zoe owns Zelensky, Wallace, and Smollett. I just like that. Oh, and the one guy's calling that we got trans dimes, saying that is what trans dimes looks like, which is one of the most insulting things I think that's ever been said on here in this chat. But I'm going to let it slide. We have guests. We have an esteemed guest. I'm not going to fly off the handle. I don't do that. I don't punch holes in walls. That's just from moving furniture. When I landed in India next week, this man says, when I landed in India, my friend came to pick me up, and so we got in his car and started to drive out. With no hesitation, just looking for a direct way out, we soon came to a set of cones blocking an exit. He tells a story here where, I'm going to skip through this because I read it. He has to negotiate with a guard to get out of this exit because there's a traffic cone in the way, and he had to broker a deal for that. But he gets into what I think is the meat of it here. It says, like little Napoleons, every auto rickshaw, which I assume is just a rickshaw. I don't know what is that, just a
rickshaw with a motorcycle on the front of it.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, we can see it here
right there. Yeah.
Yeah, any auto rickshaw and car and honky motorcycle will try to shoehorn into the 3 inches that opened up in front on the street. It's like a game of whack-a-mole in reverse. Not really sure. I'm not sure that's the comparison to make a game of whack-a-mole in reverse. That's just retarded enough to be written by an Indian on Substack. I'm very happy I opened this right now, by the way.
Do we remember when I pissed off Ajit so much that he made an entire Substack dedicated?
Was that you?
Yes, it was me, apparently. And I only realized this 3 months after the fact. This guy made an entire Substack based on a quote that I had in one of my articles.
Rent-free, baby.
Yeah,
I want to see if I could find it. What was that called? It was called H1B.
Pajit. He calls himself H1B Pajit.
Yeah. Okay, let me see here.
Weird flex, but okay.
Okay, wait, what? Oh, what the fuck am I looking at here? Okay, I gotta see this. Unban H1B Pajit by Walt Bismarck, who we've talked about before. Apparently H1B was banned, but then it was unbanned. This was a guy who, as far as I know, it's not a troll account, even though you could be forgiven for thinking it was, because it's written so poorly. and like every Substack was like 2 paragraphs long. It was a spite stack, right? And it was just him complaining about white people. And of course, we have Walt Bismarck campaigning to get this fucking freak of nature back on Substack, which I guess it works. So thank you, Walt Bismarck, for another amazing political maneuver. You stupid fucking faggot, I swear to God.
Walt should join the Indian space program.
Remember when they sent something into space and it just completely broke? And remember that? There was like the first satellite of some kind, if I recall. And
listen, it's going to be the data analyst to pirate, plunder Indian space program pipeline. That's what he's going to be doing.
But that H-1B Pajit, I heard of it, and you linked it to me, and I'm like, I'm going to cover this on Real Secret Coffee Hours, which is our paywall show.
Like,
but there's nothing there. There's nothing. It's not even, you can't cover it.
He made articles, like, he must have been banned very recently because I was reading this either yesterday or the day before. But this guy would write articles. He'd be like, whites who marry Pajitas are low status incels. And that, like, so he's like shitting on his own people. He's like throwing his own people under the bus rather than feigning that they're, you know, number one or something. He had this entire article on Vance, and he's like, Vance was such a loser, a Midwestern pudgy emo kid, skater boy, that he married a Jita, and he was just basically just shitting on him for this, and everyone was like, you know, a couple of the dumb people were like, based.
Oh, sorry. Owens Lensky makes a good point. It's funny that Dimes was rather fair to Walt Bismarck on the Real Secret Coffee Hours episode on him, but now he's really pissed off. This is what I got to realize. Don't trust me. Don't try and get in my head and try and figure out what I believe. You don't know which way I'm going on anybody. I could change this by tomorrow. Maybe tomorrow I'm saying Walt Bismarck's one of their best guys. What about that?
No, you wouldn't say that because that's false. That's patently absurd.
Where do you think I stand on anything?
We did go and tear a new one for him there.
I really don't like him.
Yeah,
I don't care for the elite human capital guys. That whole sphere, I don't like it.
I used to like those guys, but the more I just kept seeing the incorrigible takes of that entire sphere, I'm just like, I can't handle this. I think
for us, or for me, it was that the back and forth between him and Dave about what to do with the new writer or whatever, and he had like a 10-point plan on how to fucking ruin everything. That's just unforgivably stupid. I hadn't read anything that stupid in months, and I had to go take a shit after.
He had to go take a shit after reading that. First line of that whole thing was he was calling his movement the Walt Right, and I said, "Buddy, I'm gonna mummify you. You're gonna be bound, brother. You're gonna be dried by the end of this." Let's get back to this. You got right-wing Persian over here, one of my favorite guys. He's reporting it for not being anti-Indian enough. We got killers out here. It's a jackal moon out there. Let's go. Because this is just getting good here. It says, and everyone knows the score. You can almost see them constantly playing multi-participant chicken. Good game, you can almost hear them thinking as you jump the car ahead where it shouldn't have gone, just to block the bike that would have cut you off while the rickshaw stands perpendicular. So he's describing a psychological exchange that does not happen.
Yeah.
He's trying to project as a stoic, learned British man saying, "Good form, old boy," to a bunch of people trying to slit each other's throats in traffic. Like, oh, you bested me, good sir. No Indian is saying that to himself. First of all, they don't have an internal monologue, so jot that down right now. Second of all, like, it's not checkmate. Shut the fuck up. It's utter fucking savagery. Because look at this. I remember, what was I reading? It was someone had just like been to India or gone back from India, and they were describing the feeling of seeing all this infrastructure that was gifted by the British and seeing that no one knows how to use it because for us, I have to believe this, for us, when we see something like a sidewalk, we go, oh, that's for walking on the side. It's not just for whatever. It's not for you sit down and you start slaughtering a chicken. It's not for shitting on. It's not for, you have the thing, it's for what it's for. And society is all these interlocking components and institutions, and things make sense and things flow, right? But here it's like you put people on a road and they cannot spontaneously arrange themselves like a British person would. They'd say, oh, where's the end of the queue? Where do I get in line to get the thing? And it's a line that just, you don't need to fucking talk about it. But in any other part of the world, it's just they would cluster in a mass and then just start like elbowing each other until they merge into a fucking rat king.
Owen Zaleski just put in the chat there was a post on Twitter about how Jews don't want to be suckers in society. So Jewish society is basically about people getting ahead of people by ignoring the rules. Indians and Jews share that, I guess. And I was going to say, Chinese culture is the same, and I'm willing to bet almost all non-Western cultures work this way. And I don't think it's specific to their genome. I think it's a very, very specific thing to us that we figured out how not to do this. And I think it's special and it's fragile because it's a crab bucket, and I've lived it. If you have even a large minority of people behaving this way, you are a sucker if you don't behave that way. You will lose. You will get trampled. You will lose all your money. You will get fucking raped. The only way to survive in a society of rapists is to be a better rapist, or to just get rid of all of them. But this is one of the fears of letting this many of them, not just Jeets, but any of these people from these other alien societies into our society, is they turn it into this. Toronto and Brampton and Vancouver have started to look like this, where, if you don't start to behave in this way, if you don't join the crab bucket, like, you'll never have a chance at success because everybody just behaves like a fucking animal all the time.
Sorry, continue. Sorry, I cut you off there.
No, it's all good. I was gonna say, like, they do not understand meritocracy. Like, they do not understand meritocracy, and their victory conditions for them, what makes their prestige and their social status elevated, is behaving in this way. So on X, on any other platform, you're gonna say, like, you're only there because your cousin or your uncle works there, and they're like, and I'm winning and you're a loser. Right. And it's like, we in our culture don't view it that way. They're proud of it. They're literally, dude, I knew a Walmart clerk, a Taj Mahal Mart clerk, and a Singh Hortons clerk.
I've never heard these before. I love all of these, by the way. I've never heard Taj Mahal Mart.
That I didn't come up with that. Somebody much smarter than me did. But I saw this girl. I worked within the vicinity. She ended up, I popped into my bank. She's a fucking bank clerk now. This person is a fucking bank clerk. And there ain't no way they have the degree or the associates in finance or economics or whatever to get that position. But then, of course, you go to any Canadian bank right now, and all of the clerks are foreign, with the exception of upper management, which are all like Slavs or something. They're immigrants too. But so their victory conditions are this: they consider you a schlub, they consider you a loser if you're not playing that game.
If I could give an example, not to take this too far into the weeds, but it was an article I covered that will be going up on the Real Secret Coffee Hour show on our Patreon and Gumroad this Monday. I'd covered an article written in, it was either Haaretz, I think it was the Forward, is one of those openly, explicitly Jewish websites. It's written by a Jewish person, and the article was about, I'm paraphrasing here, but it was about how the Electoral College in America is an un-Jewish institution, and it must be done away with. And it was citing the Talmud, and it was reciting one of the stories in the Talmud, which I believe was the oven of Aknai. And so maybe I'll butcher this in the retelling, but in short, and I think the reason I say this is because it's indicative of Jewish thinking, which is similar to the Indian thinking, which is that you are superior if you're always trying to get one over on everyone else. There is no real concept of cooperation or horizontality. But anyway, the point is that the oven of Anakai was a story of like fucking there's 10 rabbis, and they're arguing about whether or not an oven was kosher. 9 of them agreed it was, and then 1 said it wasn't. And he said, you know what? I don't believe it's kosher, and so help me God, God will come down and prove me right. And God came down and caused a flood and ripped a tree out of the ground and said, this one rabbi is correct. it's not kosher. And they said, you know what, God, sorry, but we voted for it. And it doesn't matter what you say, God. It doesn't really matter what you say, because a majority of Jews has decided that this is correct. And the end of the story is that God smiled, because the Jews fought back against God, argued against God, and said, it doesn't matter what you say, because a majority of us said it's this way. And so not only do we have a one-to-one relationship with God, we can outsmart you. And many times in the Talmud and many times in these rabbinical texts, the moral of the story is that a bunch of rabbis outsmart God or out-argue God.
Yeah.
Where if you're a Christian, or fuck it, if you're a pagan, the idea that you could like hold your intellect over your deity is like a strange thing to think. There is actually no reverence there. So, which means that's woven into the DNA of Jewish culture. Even if you're a non-practicing religious Jew, it's woven into the culture, into the ethnography. So your interfacing with the world is always, I'm trying to outwit you, outsmart you, make my own rules, because I can make my own rules that even stand apart from God. Right. And I could like beat him with that. So you have to understand that's how they engage with the world. And I think Indians have their own thing, which is like, you know, there's that old bit of Protestant wisdom. It's that, you know, you always think God's watching you. Do you tell the truth? Do you do your duty even when no one else is watching you? I think 99% of people in the world don't. I actually think it's just Europeans that can only ever do that. Everyone else is always trying to betray or get one over on each other. And it's a game of intellect. And that's no way to have a fucking society. That was a big, long rant. So I'm wondering if anyone has any thoughts there.
Yes.
Well, go on, Judas. I'll
No,
go first.
my thought is yes. Yes was the thought.
And then you say Owen Zelinsky said oven. I'm like, I know. Like I was laughing at him. Like it's a story about, and I'm like, these people are obsessed with ovens. Sorry, continue.
So, I mean, you guys know this. Perhaps the audience doesn't. I've supervised Indians before. I've worked with Indians before. And two girls that I worked with independently, I asked them, because they told me, they're like, I prefer working with Canadians. And I'm like, what do you mean? So we're at work and they're like, well, everything runs smoothly when a Canadian is in charge. They're more fair. And I'm like, okay, like what happens when your manager's an Indian or something? And they're like, well, then it's just like the old country. And all of the Indians will pretend to be like Westerners at the workplace as long as a Canadian or a Westerner is in charge. But the second a single one of them gets their hands on the whip, it becomes exactly like it is back in India. And they resent it. They told me, I resent having Indian bosses. I prefer to work under Canadians. I was like, that's very interesting.
What's interesting, because you hear that all the time, and then you'll try and carry that conversation further and say, do you think there should be fewer Indians here? And they'll say no, or sometimes
I've heard
they'll be
yes.
Yeah.
But that's the thing. I'm like, so do you really think you're one of the good ones? You see what I'm saying? Like maybe some will, but then it's like, are you truly an Anglophile? Because I think you need to be to even start that conversation. If that conversation is to be had,
And it is
some
funny,
will say it can't.
It's funny because they identify it like they know it, but then at the same time, these people who identify this and understand objectively that it's a pattern will themselves express the pattern if given the opportunity. Like if you take one of them and give them authority, they will suddenly become that. And like my experience with this, not it's with Chinese, but being a white factory owner in China, the thing I always heard from my employees was, wow, I've never had a boss like you. It's so nice working for a Canadian. This is so, comfortable, and I don't fear for my job, and you're always so forgiving and blah, blah, blah. But then it was Asian cultural backbiting that essentially destroyed my staff to the point where the only people left were 3 Europeans and an American and me. And it's like, yeah, because we're the only ones that were actually bought in and don't fucking attempt to destroy each other over nothing. And again, I think it's just somebody, I think it's for White Wellbeing in the chat, it's talking a lot of stuff about like kind of like the cultural spirit of a people. And like, yeah, I mean, and again, I don't think that this is even specific to Indians. Indians have their own version of it, but this thing where we actually kind of, we actually genuinely, like in Dimes, you were saying, we have a system of society and institutions where things have a flow and have a purpose, and we internally respect that as if God is watching, even when nobody's around. We're the only people that do that. Nobody else does that on Earth. It doesn't matter. It's not about them. It's about us. We're unique.
Yeah, there's that old joke we have where the person with main character syndrome thinks that, everyone stops existing when, they close their eyes. But I think most of the world thinks that society stops existing after they step off of the street. Once they turn their head, like there's no civilization behind my back. I've left it. So that means I can do whatever I want. And it only matters if I get caught. And I have to believe, again, we don't know the full story about that Indian woman who was cooked alive. Remember that. I can't imagine a worse death. I really can't imagine one.
Alive, slowly in an oven that does not lock.
Yeah. Which is like, okay, so was she killed? She must have been killed beforehand and then put in there, because if not, then I actually don't know how the fuck that happens. It's fucking weird. But then, something happened where someone put her in there. Anyway, we're getting too far off on that. We got to get to this Substack because it's still very good. He goes, and everyone knows the score. You can almost see them constantly playing multi-participant chicken. Good game. Oh, yeah, I went there. Here we go. This happened repeatedly across most walks of life over the next few days, as this author was in India. To skip a line, to find parking, to get your concierge to buy something, to argue against an unjust traffic stop. It goes on and on. Life in India is a series of bilateral negotiations conducted 1,000 times a day. And that drives the character of life here. That sounds like hell to me. That sounds like we talk
of uncivilized.
Yeah, well, it's like you want to talk about low trust society. Mm-hmm. And that's what kind of blew my mind. The more we dive into, like we just given the overview of perhaps a Jewish mindset or an Indian mindset, it's like you don't believe in trust. You think trust is for suckers. And I really think that a lot of us in the West, Euro Canadians, however you want to describe them, like you have to understand they don't believe in trust. If that's the only thing you take away from the stream, realize that they don't believe that trust exists. They think that's a sucker's game. They think that's something they can manipulate you with. It's like a game of, I don't even want to call it chess. That's this guy editorializing. What would it be? Hungry hippos? Maybe that's more accurate. Like everything is a game of hungry hippos to these motherfuckers. And I just want to see, I was reading this, I love this part where he says, now I'm seeing the country properly after several years, and it's a major change. Visible infrastructure has gotten much better. Roads are good, well maintained, and highways are excellent. And they say, look how much they built. And there's an image here of him, I guess, driving or in the passenger seat on the highway. It's completely empty.
Yeah.
Which you would never see like anywhere in America. Forget about it unless you're driving on the fucking Midwest somewhere. But I'm like, this looks to be a brand new highway. That must be ornamental, right? There's something going on in India, just like in China, where they just put up these facades.
And like in China, and like in a lot of places, of course, this guy isn't one of us. He wouldn't understand this. It doesn't mean anything to build a nice thing. It means something to maintain it under extreme use. Right? Like our roads, you look at roads in Europe, and after 500 years, they look better than when they were built. This thing is brand fucking new, and there's nobody on it. If anybody used it at all, I guarantee you it's full of holes by the spring. Because right?
Because we need to maintain roads in Canada because of the rapid temperature changes over summer and spring and winter. So roads are always cracking. So you're always maintaining roads. Because if we didn't do that after 2 years, I don't think we would have functioning roads.
Laying tarmac one time is not a difficult process. I mean, the Africans even do it.
And if you just to call back to when we went to Paris, and 40, maybe you backed me up here. The one thing I noticed after maybe a couple of days was I looked down and I realized that every street, every road was vibrant and cool. It was all cobblestones or like carved tile, brick, like granite tile. Like it looked like it could have been 300 years old.
Well, because most of the city is, and they also have bylaws that force any new construction or renovation to match the aesthetic of whatever quarter of Paris that they're in. But what I wanted to say is that, like, I look at European cities and a handful of North American cities, in my view, like in the Northeast, as examples of what a livable city can be. Because there's all the idea of the detritus of a city now is basically just dilapidated, dirty, filthy American cities. But here I am in Paris. I'm like, wow, this is beautiful. Everywhere I go is a piece of art. Everywhere I go is a reference to Greco-Roman gods. Everywhere I go is a little door half my size with a little plaque that says so and so monk of whoever church in the year 1236 lived in and wrote such and such parchment paper. But it's like, it's beautiful everywhere you go. Everyone says like, oh, Paris is disgusting and filthy, whatever. I didn't go with any expectations. I knew there were elements of Paris that were going to suck. I knew there was going to, certain quarters are definitely filled with foreigners. I was a minority in Saracel. My first night in Paris, I stayed in Saracel, really cheap Airbnb. It was awesome. It was a nice condo. It looked like a North American apartment, to be honest. And then I got there and I was like, oh, this is why it's so cheap.
It's so funny. Kel Thura from the chat, he was trying to get me all gassed up about how France is going to suck. We talked about this on the show about Paris syndrome, about people, like we said, apparently there's still Japanese people having fucking seizures when they go to France. But I'm like, all the stories I heard about Paris growing up, it seemed like it was kind of a seedy, the streets always running red with the blood of revolution. Like I went into it knowing it would be kind of filthy. I was surprised by how clean it was. But the one thing about Cal, because I was telling these great stories, I went to the Arc de Triomphe, we went to Sacré-Cœur, we went to the Palace of Versailles. Like, well, yeah, wait till you just go to the poor black areas. And I just said, I'm not gonna do it. How about I just
Yeah, but no, it was
actually wait, you having a good time at the Arc de Triomphe? But why don't you go to Black Rape City? I'm like, I'm not gonna do it, and I'm just gonna have a great time. What now, Cal? Sorry, continue.
It was absolutely beautiful. Like genuinely, I enjoyed my time there. Look, I love the hustle and bustle of the big city. Okay. And
you should get Judas riled up here.
Anyway, my point is that it can be good, and there's definitely a sense of permanence there. It's well maintained, and they've ingratiated that heritage and that tradition into everything around them.
As opposed to you go to a place like India where it's just modern infrastructure slapped down, and then people just don't know how to function in it because it was not emergent. It was not grown up organically, where people weren't trained, in a sense, it's a bad word to use, but weren't trained to use it. So it's always going to be mismanaged unless you give it, I don't know, another 200 years. But you get the sense that in the West, in America, like the Anglo spirit wanted to go to the moon because that called out to us. It called out just like every other form of exploration and conquest did, probing the darkest reaches of the earth just because it's there. So that's the reason we got excited about going to the moon, as just an example. And for all the people saying we never went to the moon, just pretend that we did for a minute. Let's just have some fun. But you look at the Indian government, the only reason Indians or anyone else went to the moon is because American white people did it, so they have to do it. There was, if absent that, there's no fucking way India would have put anything into space. Fucking blow me. I don't want to hear it.
Emma says, will you just read the fucking article already? Fuck.
Sorry, all I heard was like people saying, "Oh, I don't want to just tune in to watch someone read." I thought you liked the electricity of talking about Paris, but okay. Here we go.
I thought you liked the joie de vivre of talking about Paris.
I was trying to go for the jouissance, but what they want to hear is this part right here, which is great. Look at this. Air travel is great, and the airports are absolutely spectacular. Now look at this. It looks like it's just made of IKEA wood. Am I wrong here? Like, what is this we're looking at here?
We've got them the Christmas trees that go on the ground.
We've got
all wrong.
Christmas trees on flying saucers, randomly hanging from a wood grid ceiling. This does not look spectacular.
Yeah,
this looks like a biohazard inside of a fire hazard.
Also, like
this looks like ChatGPT recreating Minecraft.
Yeah.
This does look. What a ChatGPT people they are, aren't they?
Institutional buildings and like airports and shit are more or less the same globally. You know, you can't build them without $500 million anyways. They all look the same. This was probably done by a fucking Danish architecture firm. You know what I mean? Like, it's such a cope to show at an airport How about you show us how 99% of the population live? Come on, be honest.
Well, here's the part that kind of speaks to that. Even trains have gotten better, even if train stations aren't there yet. That's an odd thing.
Well, he's
an odd thing to say.
A lot there. It's like, look, the trains are great. They don't have stations. You still have to jump on while they're moving, but
the inside of the trains are great. The outside on top of the trains, I mean, it's getting there, but it's like the number of beggars on the street has been reduced. Notice how he hasn't said reduced a lot. He just says shops got uplifted. Don't know what that means. Mobile phones are better and everyone has one. I mean, that we've been paying for that in the West.
Yeah, that was us.
I mean, that was worse than the innovation of the nuclear bomb, as far as I'm concerned. Whoever gave Indians cell phones. Payment infrastructure is eons beyond the West, and that's just an outright lie. Let's just take this in totality. Payment infrastructure is eons beyond the West, and it's safe, which a country without a strong legal safety net and a lot of poverty arguably shouldn't be. So he's admitting there's no legal safety net in India, and it's also racked with poverty, which seems to undercut every point he fucking made. There's no real urban crime.
Wait,
okay.
Hold on, but that doesn't make, and it is safe, his claim, which a country without a strong legal safety, well, that's not true, though. It's not safe. It's not fucking safe. How many killings just within families are there? It's insane. Have you even seen the news?
Rape
the amount of
every
just
17 minutes.
familial rape in India is off the fucking chart.
How can you say there's no real urban crime if you just said there's no real law enforcement? That's what that means. Legal safety net. What do you mean? You mean police?
It's like you're a wealthy Patel who visited there for 2 weeks and you didn't get robbed. Big fucking whoop, man. I mean, look, you go hang out in downtown New York, you're not going to get robbed. Yeah, because most of that violence is gang violence. Unless you go in the neighborhood, you're not going to get shot. That doesn't mean there's no violence. This is the dumbest claim.
See, Darren Acemoglu, the famous economist who recently won the Nobel Prize, you would usually say which Nobel Prize, but whatever, has extensively talked about, I assume means about the importance of institutions in economic development. I mean, I didn't think you'd win a Nobel Prize for saying institutions are important, but sure. It's true. Institutions do matter a lot. Property rights, restricting elite capture, supporting employment. These are all necessary aspects of helping a country progress. India has Indians have pretty good institutions in this view. So we're talking about property rights, by the way. Here, it's like, yeah, it's good.
It's on the up and up.
Or at least far better than it used to have. You hear that a lot. Like, India's superpower by 2025. Well, why? How far have you progressed? We've progressed a few.
Can we just summarize that as it's pretty good, or at least pretty good, or at least like at least.
Sean Schaefer asking the question: the Nobel Prize for rape. I mean, we won't know. We won't know. He didn't say.
The century is young.
Here's it. The laws are well defined, even though the legal system runs like molasses. State capacity is somewhat reasonably bounded. It's not perfect by any means. You know, that almost sounds like there's so much crime that the legal system struggles to deal with it all. I mean, I love this. I love this shit. I always tell people, if you want to be a guy like a piece of shit like us, like a bigot, just read from the type of person you want to know more about. Don't listen to guys on the internet talking about Indians. Just go listen to Indians. You will get so much more insight, and they don't know how to massage the truth. They just say, like, India's great. How great is it? Well, it's better than it used to be. Well, how recently? A couple of years, like up until 5 minutes ago, yeah, we had a rape problem, but now we just have, a forced marriage and molestation problem.
We used to burn widows, and now we just like rape daughters. It's a huge improvement.
We used to burn widows, but now we worship their ashes. Wait, what? That's a huh? What? What it does not have yet, and loses at least a percentage of GDP growth on, is bad informal institutions. One might even call it a culture. What a thing to say. What a thing. The one thing India has going for it is bad institutions, which, if you think about it, is a culture in itself. I mean, This is I
Couldn't
wouldn't
have
be
said it
surprised.
better myself.
Yeah. Akimoglu considers the informal institutions endogenous, shaped by the foundational formal institutions rather than serving as foundational themselves. In this view, this is why Northern Italy exhibits higher levels of social trust and economic performance. Don't bring the Italians into this. Do you leave the Italians out of this?
Indians of Europe.
Yeah, Douglas North, another prominent economist, in his work on institutions and economic performance, wrote about the success and failure of economics as largely dependent on institutions. The theory is that with sufficiently strong formal institutions, you can shape culture. For instance, okay. So it's this new idea he just read about. Yeah. For instance, by enforcing fare payments in subways, you can change the behavior of people such that they don't dodge fares. This is the Indian innovation. It's like if we actually just enforce the laws, eventually people will stop breaking the laws. And this is something that India is struggling with. Remember, 5 minutes ago, he said that there's no crime. Yeah.
Full of shit. Just making it up.
I kind of get mad reading this because, you're just, I feel like John Malkovich's character in Burn After Reading. Like this is one of a league of morons that I've been dealing with my entire life.
Yeah.
This guy, I see him every fucking day. Every time an Indian says, let me give you some advice, white man, on how to fix your civilization. Like just it's not funny anymore. The audacity. I use that word a lot, but just the sheer audacity of this is so striking. I've been rambling a lot for us. What do you think about all this?
He's here.
He's right there, you damn
I thought
fool.
He was pissing. I thought he went for a piss.
Oh, did he? Wait a second. Yeah. No, he was pissing, but he's back.
Now he's just laughing at you.
So yeah, before what do you think? I guess maybe you didn't even see this. He doesn't piss in the sink like we do.
You got your pod right beside like the laundry sink, right? And you just lean back in your chair and let her rip.
You haven't been catheter podcasting, have you, 40? He's just getting into this.
I was gonna say when mom find poop sock, but I don't think you guys know what that is.
That's so funny that Indian guys don't jerk off; they just shit. That's everything they do. Every natural inclination is just like they're shitting the bed, and their mom finds the shit sock. He's become a man now. A simpler explanation might be that institutions are easy to set up while at the top, but incredibly difficult to make percolate into the whole society. Why would, after all, you decide to follow the traffic rules? You know what? Yeah. Why would you? This is the Indian mind. Like, why? There's a rule. Why would you follow the rules, though? You know what? Yes, that's the vibe I get from dealing with you people. You're supposed to not cheat. Why wouldn't I cheat? I don't get. You must explain to me why I won't cheat. That's why you're dealing with people who on a very genetic level don't understand why people follow rules. They think it's funny. They think it's funny that you follow rules.
Yeah. They're laughing at you.
Yeah. Oh, we got one. I'm not a number. I'm a free man. Piss jug gang. He says, even in the West, there's no sufficient enforcement possible that can catch everyone who speeds. Well, that's just it, isn't it?
That's a really interesting observation because you're right, and we will eventually look exactly like India if you fuckers keep coming here. But the thing is, the reason that our society works is because our culture is such that we don't need enforcement. We have many laws for which there's zero enforcement, and yet we all follow the laws. Isn't that weird? I wonder if it isn't just magic dirt, if there maybe is a difference between us.
Now, we can keep going with this article, but it really just established the point. I really wanted to just drill into that and firmly establish the type of mind that you're dealing with. Now, this individual, this author, will say that's a feature, not a bug. That it's really interesting. It's very culturally significant that they think this way. Isn't it beautiful that every interaction is subversive. Isn't it cool? Like, we made that joke in the past, you know, for all the critics of capitalism on our side, you have never met a capitalist as vehemently capitalistic as a non-white. Any non-white, literally any Indian, is more of a petite bourgeoisie tycoon than fucking the top CEO in America right now. Find me like a guy who owns 12 meatpacking plants. He's probably less of a greedy capitalist than like an Indian guy who runs a cell phone kiosk.
An Indian guy who buys up all the Subways franchises.
Yeah.
Sean Schaefer said swastika detected. Oh, right there. Yeah, got him. I still don't like him. I say, you know, that's broken clock is a swastika twice a day. I think that's how clocks work. I'm wondering if we have time to even get to the video I wanted to watch.
Oh, there was a video.
Did you want to watch this? I had gotten... Yes. Okay. This is interesting. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to set it to, let's do 1.25 speed. It's only 40 minutes long, but I think we can speed through. We don't need to watch the entire thing, but this is a Canadian mainstream media production. So if people don't know what the Fifth Estate is, it's, you know, state-backed media. It tends to be looked upon as something at the level of, what's that? There's like an American counterpart. I want to say 60 minutes. 60 minutes. I was going to say this hour is 22 minutes, but it's not that. But this is the story. And for a sec, even if you want to tee this up briefly, we can. Inside an alleged plot by the Indian government to kill Sikh, we call them Sikhs, but they're called Sikhs, Sikh activists in Canada. Did you look into this, Phil?
I'm sick of this shit.
Exactly. I mean, again, it writes itself. You don't even need us when you're dealing with Indians. But did you have any insight in this or thoughts, or did you want to just get into the video?
What I know from this situation is that the guy was a Khalistani separatist. They shot him dead in Vancouver. Apparently, the Americans knew about it and didn't tell CSIS. I wonder why. Because they're trying to get as much Pajit slave labor as possible along with the rest of the Anglosphere. Canada is in the Five Eyes. It was kept out of that knowledge sharing. And what I know is that this is just another assassination on our soil between Hindustanis and Khalistanis. Apparently, the 6 Indian diplomats who were just aggressively expelled have something to do with it. But the RCMP is not releasing most of the details just yet.
Yeah, so what I'm going to do is I'm just going to like hide just our shit here. So let me know if you can hear this right now.
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
On this edition of The Fifth Estate, a murder in Surrey, British Columbia has sparked a diplomatic crisis between Canada and India.
Any involvement of a foreign government in the killing of a Canadian citizen on Canadian soil is an unacceptable violation of our sovereignty.
The brazen killing.
You know, I noticed, and we're, 40, if you want us to stop this at any point, we're pretty shit-lib about stopping these things. From what I recall about Trudeau's response to this, if indeed this is what happened, foreign government killing a Canadian citizen, you would want to respond fiercely. You would want to say, like, you will face repercussions. You will face the might of the Canadian sword or something. But all he said was, that's not cool. That's a threat to our sovereignty, and you can't do that. That's pretty much all he said, which is does not inspire either fear or confidence in anyone around the world. What do you think about that?
I think that's the case, and I think that the general reaction from the public, because they're using very careful language here, they keep using Canadian citizen, but what they don't tell you is that he was obviously an Indian. And what I'm noticing is that Canadians do not seem to care that the person that the person was killed because he wasn't Canadian. Like on an
interesting point. Like, for most people, to get them to care, you have to say, "Oh, it sounds like the Indian government assassinated someone some old white guy," but it's just an Indian killing another Indian. And now you need to explain to them, like, wait, what? So they're killing each other? No, well, they're not the same. Wait, what? And this is what we just said so many episodes ago, which is that I think so many people in Canada are just tired of having to know about Indian stuff. I don't want to have to understand what the Sikh conflict within India. Who are these people? I just know them as Indians, but now I got to get involved in their bullshit. Now I need to take a side in this conflict. And I think even libs don't have the patience for that.
No, I shouldn't know the difference between a Tamil, a Gujarati, a Punjabi. I should know the difference between Hindi, Urdu, and Tamil as a language. I shouldn't know that Bangladesh is East Pakistan. I shouldn't know any of this stuff. And yet here we are. Here we are because we're being forced to deal with all of this.
I remember when I worked at a restaurant many years ago, in the kitchen, we had like one line cook and then a couple of dishwashers were Tamil. But two of the guys were like Tamil tigers or something, and the other guy was not. And then there was some kind of feud that had percolated there. And the rest of us were like, don't you know that you're brown? Don't you know that you're just Tamil? Like, you know what I mean? Like, I don't know what this is. It's you guys just eat leaves for dinner, like big fronds, right? Like this is, and you like smoke weird cigarettes together. Like this is an intra-ethnic conflict that I don't want to be brought into, but you're making it part of my life. And you don't even get that with Africans.
You keep seeing them in X Spaces too try to make it a Canadian issue. They keep trying to be like, no, you should care because so and so and so. And the Canadian response unanimously is, I don't care, get out of my country. I don't care. I don't like you. You're all the same to me. Get out of my country.
Yeah, I remember them trying to make Sikhs like right wing, like they're trying to do with Israelis in a sense, right? Like right wing paragons. Like, look, they carry around knives. That's cool. I'm like, I guess I'm not allowed to do that, but I should be excited that they can't. Like, what about them am I supposed to be in love with? But I remember even guys like Gavin McInnes and the Rebel News people, like, they're really based. But you failed to explain how they were, except that they get to skirt the laws that I am subject to. Well, that's good for them, though. It's just they outsmarted our rules, but I'm not falling in line behind them because of that.
Yeah.
Here we go.
On Father's Day of a man outside his place of worship would reveal a story many might not know is happening in Canada, an independence movement to create a country on the other side of the world.
That's the reason they killed Nija. That's the reason they wanted to kill me.
We gain exclusive access to the front lines of that movement. With eyewitnesses and surveillance video, we pieced together a plot that has to be seen to be believed.
We were warned of the imminent threat of assassination to us.
I'm Bob McEwen. This is the Fifth Estate.
We were playing in the field when it happened, and we hear the
just like how Canadians do. We play in the field.
We're playing in the field. Yeah, this is like the tranny being like, I was painting my nails by the pool. No, you weren't. That's not. You're describing a thing you think we do. just Indian guy standing stationary in the middle of a field.
Sound of crackers. But then we saw those two guys running. We started running towards where the sound was coming from. Both same height, and they were wearing black apparels, and they were masked. I told Malki to,
They looked Indian, and they had the exact orange fucking head thing that you all have. Like, honestly.
So just to chase them.
ਭੁਪਿੰਦਰ ਜੀ ਤੇ ਇਹ ਆਪਣੇ ਜਿੱਥੇ ਗੁਰੂ ਘਰ ਵੱਲ ਚਲ ਗਏ ਇਹਨਾਂ ਵੇਖਿਆ ਜਾ ਕੇ ਉੱਧਰ ਪਿੱਕੇ ਵਾਲੇ ਚਲ ਗਏ ਮੈਂ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਪਿੱਛੇ
people listening on audio, this won't make any sense, but I'm noticing that it seems that they picked Comic Sans as the font here to translate.
Also, isn't it weird that the Fifth Estate is interviewing a young guy and he can't speak any English? Like,
does
anybody find that odd? It's not like it's somebody's granddad. Like, it's a fucking... I'm assuming this guy has a job. He sounds like he's in his 20s, but he doesn't speak English.
It kind of sounds like they just went to India to cover a foreign conflict.
Yeah. Huh. Weird.
ਮੁੰਡੇ ਮਗਰ ਚਲ ਗਿਆ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਦੇ ਮਤਲਬ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਦਾ ਜਿਵੇਂ ਭਾਰੇ ਸਰੀਰ ਦੇ ਕਾਫੀ ਇੱਕ ਤੇ ਕਾਫੀ ਭਾਰਾ ਸਰੀਰ ਦਾ ਕੋ ਜਿਵੇਂ ਉਹ ਕੋ ਭੱਜਿਆ ਨਹੀਂ ਜਾਂਦਾ ਸਾਹ ਚੜਿਆ ਸੀ ਉਹਨੂੰ ਤੇ ਮਾਸਕ ਪਾਏ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਦੇ ਵੇਖਣ ਅੱਖਾਂ ਉਹ ਇੰਡੀਅਨ ਲੱਗਦੇ ਸੀ
wait, okay, so okay, for the people who are just listening to audio, he says, I saw their eyes, they looked Indian.
Like an amphibian, dead, hollow.
I could tell from their extremely dark brown eyes that they were Indian, or I guess anyone outside of Europe. Like,
He was out of breath. He wiped the shit from his eyes, and yeah.
Don't talk to me like you're plugged into the Indian Matrix, motherfucker. Like, what do you do? What do you he bobble? You saw his eyes bobble back and forth. I'm calling bullshit on everything an Indian person says from here on out. Let's just establish that at the start.
ਉਹਨਾਂ ਦੇ ਵੇਖਣ ਅੱਖਾਂ ਉਹ ਇੰਡੀਅਨ ਲੱਗਦੇ ਸੀ, ਮਤਲਬ ਕਿ ਕਾਫੀ ਭੱਜ ਕੇ ਦੂਰ ਗਏ, ਉਹਨਾਂ ਉੱਥੇ ਗੱਡੀ ਜਾ ਕੇ ਬਹਿ ਗਏ ਉੱਥੇ।
I tried to press his chest and tried to shake and to see if he was breathing, but he was totally.
It's funny, like, so a guy was shot, and then in very Indian manner, he just started pressing his chest. Like, that's not what you do. Like, that's if you saw that in a movie or something. Chest compressions could actually you might have very well killed him if he was alive.
This guy's the murderer.
ABCs, LOCs.
Look, I've heard blackout drunk names that sound more serious than these retards. Like, honestly, like, I'm sorry. Hey, I have some sympathy that you just can't be taken seriously. You could be describing your last moments with your mother. You could be explaining the ethereal nature of her death rattle to me, and I'm gonna be like, oh, really? What would she sound like?
Unconscious. Was not breathing.
Police in British Columbia say the man killed outside a Sikh temple Sunday night appears to have been targeted. They've identified the shooting victim as the temple's president, Hardeep Singh Nijjar.
Okay, can we just appreciate that? Nijjar?
Bigger.
Yeah, well, yeah, yes, you need to just spell it out, but I think people could auto-complete that joke in their heads. We have some serious people watching this, Judas.
It is literally just replace the G's with J's. That was his name.
This guy could be one of the greats. This guy, if it turns out that's the name he adopted when he was here, I might do a 180 on Indians. That's a dying for that bit.
So that day in the morning, it being Father's Day, we had gotten him a gift, a pair of jeans, because he usually goes through them really quickly because he just loves wearing jeans in general.
Is that why? Is that really the reason?
What? No. He goes through a lot of pants because he just loves them.
We just gotta keep buying him pants. He just keeps on. He's throwing them out. I don't know what's going on.
You ever do that, Juice? You ever just love a pair of pants so much that you wear through them in a couple days?
Yeah.
Like denim, which are meant to last.
Make this shit up.
Blue denim you can wear for like 15 years.
Yeah.
Now he's just cycling through them. I mean, these are not as serious people. Fuck, maybe I'm glad they're here.
I was gonna say.
You go on.
Oh, I was just gonna say, like, on the scale of mass invasion of who we could be dealing with, it could be a lot worse.
Yeah.
Imagine if it was actually like Iranian Persians invading and they were like smart. You know what I mean? Like that we'd be in trouble. Imagine if the Japanese are trying to invade. I mean, we might be in trouble, but so far it's just these guys. They're smarter than, and this is what we always said about Indians. Like they're smarter than your average African. Just if you're talking about IQ distributions, yes. So they're smart enough to be treacherous, but
orangutans though.
But the thing they're treacherous, it's very easy to catch them in a lie. Oftentimes it's like a child will lie, so they can lie, but you can see on their faces that they're not savvy about it. So I'm like, I immediately know you're bullshitting me, and you think by calling me your friend that you're tricking me, and maybe that does convince some Canadians because we are very polite, but like we all know you're lying. We don't want to get into a fight with you immediately. Okay.
Their size, he joked that, you got me a size too big. And I joked that we'll see. And he said, don't worry, within like a week or two, you're gonna have to go exchange these jeans and get me a size smaller. And I said, if you do that, I'll buy you 5 more. That's how I went about in the morning.
I don't know what that means. You know what I mean? Like, yeah. So he was going to lose weight rapidly. You have to buy 5 more pairs, or what I interpret that as he was filling it up with turds. He said, "You're going to have to buy me a smaller pair because this one will be filled to the brim with human excrement, and we laughed as we Indians do. Otherwise, what does that mean?
And then later at 8:20 p.m., he called again, saying that I'll be leaving in 5-10 minutes. And then my mom informed him that, we made samia for him, that, he got more excited. He's like, I'm coming right now, that samia was one of his favorite desserts to eat. And obviously, just 7 minutes after that, the incident happened.
How did you learn?
So in a way, it's your fault. It's a way, if you hadn't made that dessert, he wouldn't have raced turds flying out of the fucking top of his pants, rolling on the ground, tripping him up. He's stumbling over himself. His shit flows from the bottom of his pants, and then the assassins get the drop on him.
And then he's like, the aristocrats.
If he ends the interview with that, I'm like, again, I'm 180 on Indians. I'm loving these people. I'm back to being an Indo-European.
Around 8:40 p.m., a family friend called and he said, your dad's been shot. And my first sense was, I just gave him a call. First ring, didn't pick up. Gave him another ring, didn't pick up again. And then at that moment, I just grabbed my jacket, And my mom and brother, they said we're coming too. And then from there, we just rushed to the Gurdwara. I just started searching his name, like on social media, on Google, to kind of maybe get an update on what happened. There were a few.
Let me just say, it's like, did you mean Hardeep nigger? It's autocorrecting you. It's like, did you mean a slur? He's trying to search his dead father's name. Did you mean hard and deep nigger? It's like, no, I didn't. I didn't mean fucking porn. I didn't mean gay pornography. But it is funny. Like, again, this is. I know White Wellbeing is in the chat saying we should be more positive. Just making fun of our opponents is very ghoulish, you might say. I get that. It is funny that instead of like running to his dead relative side, he is trying to phone him and then search him on Google. That's a very Indian thing to do, is to go on social media and start texting people.
Indian media posts saying Hardeep Nijjar's been killed. So my mom was basically asking me, well, maybe if there's something on social media. I just told her that, once we get there, let's see what happened.
So you didn't tell her you saw the news that he had died?
No, I didn't tell her.
But, like, if it just happened, why would there be, you know what I mean? Like, so I guess the journalist would have figured out first. But anyway, that's like a weird thing.
Once we got there, it was probably 9 p.m. by then. And I just ran as fast as I could. And
shut up. Okay.
For most Canadians, it may come as a shock to learn there's an active independence movement in Canada for another country on the other side of the world. For Canadian Sikhs and Hindus, it is in some ways the legacy of the partition of India by the British in 1940s.
Isn't that always the case? And just to remind people, we are watching a mainstream liberal Canadian thing, which is blaming this on the British. Mm-hmm. Like, you might not like that there's people being assassinated for an independence movement across the world, but if you think about it, this is because of the British, which is you.
Yeah.
Yes.
7. Then the largest chunk of land became the Republic of India. The smaller part became the Islamic Republic of Pakistan. Despite having ruled Punjab for over half a century before colonization, the Sikhs got left out by the British.
Oh, the poor Sikhs, because they were so kind and democratic before the fucking Jew. Oh man. Oh, yeah. What an absolute spin that was.
Yeah, I mean, Larger Potato makes a good point here. It says no such thing as a Canadian Sikh or Hindu, because it is true. Like,
yeah,
like,
no, they literally. It's right here. The reason they came to Canada, the reason they were trying to skirt that law that told them they had to go directly from their country of origin to Canada, was because they were spreading across the empire, trying to build resources and finance to launch their independence movement. So the Sikhs have been doing this for 120 years. They've been doing this literally for a century and a quarter. What they're doing now is no different from what they were doing when the Komagata Maru incident happened and when they shot dead a Canadian immigration officer in broad daylight.
Yeah, I don't know if we touched on that yet, but if you wanted to, I know you were talking about this to me in a DM about, or maybe you did talk about it earlier, but yeah, it was one of the first things that occurred was an assassination of an immigrations officer.
Yeah, so he was a British guy born and raised in India. He spoke fluent Hindi with no accent. He ends up moving to Canada. He's investigating a criminal ring. And Indian and nationalist operations in BC, and then he was supposed to testify in a court case because one of the Indians killed the other one. There was some struggle over honor or something to that effect. So he was going to the Vancouver courthouse to testify, and one of the Singhs, there's like 3 Singhs in the story, it's very hard to follow, shoots him dead in broad daylight on the steps of the Vancouver courthouse, and this just gets swept under the rug. And this is like one of the major first interactions that Sikhs have with Canada, right? Like they tried to illegally enter the country after their leader was scamming other people tickets for steamships around the world, and then they assassinated an immigrations officer. Like that's just it.
And I do wonder if they're doing this, and perhaps it's obvious, but if they're doing this because they have a vendetta against the British diaspora. And in one hand, they could say, well, they were afforded special entry into the British Empire as they were subjects of it. So it might just be ease of access. But part of me does think that, especially now, the fact that they're trying to do this in Canada especially means that I think they correctly see Canada as an extension of Britain, also France,
yes.
But let's just say Britain. And so they must be doing this because they just don't like us. Would that be a fair assessment?
I would say that that's fair. It seems to be a mix of appreciation and also resentment. Like it seems to be both of these things, because they do this in New Zealand too. I was just watching a video earlier today of another Khalistan march with all the yellow flags, like somewhere in Auckland. And I'm just like, you guys are just spreading out across the empire, trying to wage your half-assed independence movement from other countries, from the safety of other countries.
Yeah, and one thing that you've helped establish, it's the awareness that this has been going on for a lot longer than people think, and the only difference might have been just the sheer numbers, and perhaps the numbers were smaller in the past, but now it's reached a critical mass where it's unignorable. But this has been a mission of theirs throughout the 20th century.
And the proof that they do see us as the British, as the Britishers, is that their justification for being in Canada is always, we served in the British Armed Forces during the World Wars. It's always what the British did. Therefore,
they think they learned a rule, just like everything else. Like I learned a rule, so you need to do this because that's the law, right? But they don't really understand the law. They just think they have one over on you. And many Canadians might say, well, you fought honorably. It's like, no. Ask them what war they think they fought in. I don't think they know what they're talking about. You know what I mean?
And it's the same. It's the same with the natives thing too. They're using libtard moral browbeating against Canadians now. So they'll say things like, "You killed the natives." It's like, okay, what are you doing for the natives by being here? You're in possession of stolen property.
Yeah, exactly. And, if you wanted to get rude, you'd say, oh, you killed the natives. Well, then I'll kill you too. Shut the fuck up. Like, I'm apparently a killer. You're right. I'm a crazy killer. So I guess you better fuck off, right? If I am the white man that you say I am, then I'm 5 seconds away from opening a concentration camp for everyone. So, but you're not acting accordingly, which makes me think you don't believe that. Anyway, it's not easy to get one over on these people. Like I said, any Indian who's acting like they're on your side, even that they're trying to teach you a thing or two about traditionalism or vitality, they just think it's funny when white people get raped and are under. They think it's you deserve every oppression imaginable, and it's funny because any oppression that is sort of taken, it's deserved, because that's how they view the world, right? Like you're a lower caste. They think you're like a lower white caste that they're allowed to spit on. Here we go.
Dan Stanton was a senior Canadian intelligence officer for 30 years. During that time, he investigated extremism, including within the Sikh community. He said it was an issue in Canada.
He's not running correctly there, is he? That's a strange jog. He's like punching the ground.
1980s, but has long since died out. Stanton retired from CSIS 4 years ago.
Who is Hardeep Singh Nijjar? He's a Canadian. He was an activist, and he did promote the idea of Khalistan.
He is Canadian. I don't know who you've been talking to. He is Canadian. Very suspicious way to open that. Are you allowed to say he's Indian? That's the other thing you'll notice about this. Like at any point of this, say, oh, he's Sikh. No, is he an Indian guy? Just say that one time.
I have my doubts that he was a terrorist. The Indian government has a proven track record of, in many ways, wanting to denigrate the Sikh community in Canada.
What's the truth about Sikh extremism? There's new evidence that the Indian government has embarked on a campaign to give Sikhs a bad name. There are even some
surely the Air India bombing from Montreal to London, where they didn't kill every Hindu passenger on board across the Atlantic, had nothing to do with their bad name. And Operation Blue Star, where Gandhi's daughter was assassinated by her Punjabi Sikh bodyguards. That actually happened. That's where they get their bad name from.
It's a coordinated effort by India to make this type of Indian look bad.
Wonder if Ottawa is being misled by New Delhi.
And so they'll often create this illusion that there's all these Sikh terrorists in Canada going around. So I'm skeptical about the assertions that he was a terrorist.
We asked the Indian High Commission in Ottawa.
Well, I mean, you are CSIS, so you would know, and your department, your area of focus was that. So you should be able to definitively say whether he was or wasn't, unless you're just a fucking retard who doesn't know what he's doing, which, because you're CSIS, I would believe. Yeah, it was my job to understand Sikh terrorism, and you know what? I don't know. I don't think Sikhs are terrorists, really. So for your entire career, you just did fuck all then. It's like, oh, you know, my beat was Amish terrorism. I spent 20 years in Amish terrorism, and you know what? I don't think they're terrorists. What kind of fucking job is that?
To let us know what the evidence is that Nijjar was a terrorist, but they never responded to us. This is video that the mainstream Indian media use in their reporting about Nijjar, identifying him as the person shooting the firearms here, claiming he ran a terrorist training camp in BC. But the person in this video seems to bear no resemblance to Nijjar. So we investigated. People in Surrey who should know have confirmed the man in this video is not.
People in Surrey who should know.
People in Surrey who should know. This is the Fifth Estate, people. This is a serious program. What the fuck are you talking about?
Nijjar. In fact, through friends and family, we were able to confirm his identity. But for his safety, we're not releasing his name.
Okay, well, but this person is a terrorist then. So if it's not him, then you found a terrorist, but I think we should know who he is then. Right?
Punjabi-dominated Surrey. Yes, that's correct.
We asked a bunch of Punjabis if this is the guy. They said, no, we know who he is, but we're not going to tell you. Good journalistic rigor there.
Where's the line between free speech and fomenting dissent? People have to actually do things to support terrorism. It could be providing money, funds, things like that. And so it's like a checklist. And if the individual isn't going through that checklist, so to speak, they remain an activist.
We would not be afforded that. If you've ever sent a fucking super chat to the kill stream, you're on a list.
It's crazy that they're even saying that.
Even right-wing person says that guy looked exactly like him. I'm like, yeah, so I don't know.
I would like to point out, though, that video, I know we want to call him a terrorist because he's clearly a Sikh, but he's at the gravel pit with semi-automatic rifles. He is actually, assuming he has a license, that's what we look like, you know? So the only problem I have with him doing that is that he's not one of us, but that is what I do on a Saturday. So
having a semi-auto rifle in each hand and shooting it while your buddy, videotapes you,
blasting and pumping it in the air and laughing. Yeah, I mean, that's a dude thing to do. I'm just upset that you're doing it.
Playing Rolling by Limp Bizkit on repeat at increasing volume throughout the day. I mean, that's just
a Sikh class.
That is guys being dudes. Again, I think I'm coming around on Indians. I'm going to be honest with you. they're doing fucking terrorism.
Listen, we gotta start asking the IQ.
Oh, the Indian. You know what? I think that might ruin IQ. The PQ.
To conduct its propaganda campaign inside this country is this. It distributes a mountain of Indian newspapers, free and unsolicited, to a number of Sikh businesses. Then there are other government publications like this one, which states that Sikhs in Vancouver are receiving combat training at the YMCA. That's something that came as a complete surprise to the Y.
Well, so are they or aren't they? Can you do that? Like, I know what the YMCA is. Like, how would you?
the other thing is that you can rent space at the Y. So like saying that we asked management at the Y and they weren't aware of it. Of course, they're not fucking aware of it. Like somebody is using your space. It's a community center.
Calling up the YMCA. So do you have any Punjabi terrorism classes there? And it's just a guy going, duh, I don't know. Probably not.
Not till after Christmas, I think.
That's
Another Canadian accused of terrorism by the Indian government is Gurpatwant Singh Panu. This was a non-binding referendum organized by Panu in Surrey, BC in September 2023. He's a dual Canadian and American citizen, known widely for two things: holding referendums around the world so local Sikh communities can vote on whether to carve out an independent country from a part of India, which they want to call Khalistan. He also posts videos online, making inflammatory statements seemingly designed to enrage the Indian government.
And with the Guru's blessings, and challenging Indian Prime Minister, Hindu terrorist Modi.
And enraged.
So he's a content guy. I mean, you know, can't fault him for that. Just shit posting online. But it's such an odd thing to do. Like, that would never occur to me as a Westerner, as a white man, which is like, okay, I'm going to go around the diaspora outside of my home nation and get them to vote on a non-existent really referendum in the country. Like, the idea would be all of you go back to India and carve out that land. I don't understand what you be voting on.
And cowardly.
Well, you really like just maybe I'm missing something. How does this fucking work? So your entire people are spread out. So you vote on the country that wants to kill you, and then would they give it to you? What you should do is take those guns and go back and then fight a civil war. But did you just like they learned what democracy is? So it's like we took a vote. Now a thing has to happen.
Because it's not materially possible, because Punjabi Sikhs are like 1 or 2% of the 1.5 billion Indians in the Republic, right?
It'd be like a bunch of Canadians trying to vote to get like a part carved out of Britain or something. That's a bad example. I should have just let it lay. I should have just hit play.
India's government he has. As you will see, that would lead to a global murder plot investigated by policing agencies in 4 different countries. But first, something else would happen to grab international headlines. Just weeks after that referendum in Surrey, Prime Minister Justin Trudeau makes a stunning announcement in the House of Commons.
Over the past number of weeks, Canadian security agencies have been actively pursuing credible allegations of a potential link between agents of the government of India and the killing of a Canadian citizen, Hardeep Singh Nijjar. Any involvement of a foreign government in the killing of a Canadian citizen on Canadian soil is an unacceptable violation of our sovereignty.
What are you going to do? What are you going to go? Are you going to go to war over this? Then what? You know what I mean? So I'm just looking at the comments here. Kekistan will rise again, says Vol's Persona. I guess that would be the last time we tried something like that, when we tried to... Gamergate was kind of like our fucking Khalistani movement, right?
About as effective.
Yeah. Let's keep going.
The government of India calls Justin Trudeau's claims of a murder-for-hire plot absurd. It took days of official silence, but finally, a statement from India's foreign minister.
We told the Canadians that this is not the government of India's policy.
But the Indian media have been relentless, taunting the Prime Minister to show evidence of a Canadian hit list, questioning whether any real proof exists. In Ottawa, opposition leader...
Well, the proof would be the 2 guys you shot. You know what I mean? Show us the kill list. Well, there's one. No, it's absurd. What do you mean absurd? What do you mean? Like, you ask me, hey, did you shoot this activist who hates you? No. Well, boy, howdy.
Leader Pierre Poilievre joins in the chorus.
The Prime Minister needs to come clean with all the facts. We need to know all the evidence possible so that Canadians can make judgments on that.
Do you think?
God, what a fucking faggot! I hate
Poilievre.
I think I might hate Poilievre more than Trudeau. That's a crazy thing to say, but just what a non-statement. Like, he needs to come. Trudeau needs to come out with the facts. And what facts? He said the facts.
That's
well,
his
the
pedigree,
fact,
though, right?
The fact of the matter is that Trudeau needs to axe the tax.
something common sense. Something. Yeah.
That was such a good line. Like, him just saying that to whatever it is.
Canadians will ever see the hard evidence implicating potential agents of the Indian government? No.
But finally, after 2 months from south of the border, evidence shows up.
American authorities were quietly working to thwart an alleged murder-for-hire plot on U.S. soil linked to the Indian government.
Court documents are unsealed in New York, detailing an Indian plot to kill an unnamed Sikh lawyer, a dual citizen of Canada and the U.S.
Yeah, of all the times for dual citizenship to come up in a tone of rancor, it's this. Are we allowed to complain about people with dual citizenships now, or be suspicious of that? I think it's time to open the books on dual citizenship. Oh, Polyev Biscuits and Coffee says, "Go easy on him, Dimes. He's just a humble goy from the prairies."
I can't even believe that's real. Like
That was so funny. That was honestly worse than I think anything Trudeau. Like Trudeau showing up dressed in some Indian garb and doing a silly dance. Okay, like I get it. Mr. Dress Up is what they used to call him. Doing this for every culture, but then just Polyev going in a room full of Jews, like I'm just a dumb goy. Like you, and then they clapped. I'm like, come on, this is. I like fucking Sam Hyde had to crumple up an entire sketch and throw it out the window because of that.
That's exactly it.
The plot begins in India, when an Indian intelligence officer recruits a narcotics and weapons trafficker who's facing multiple criminal charges in India. His name, Nikhil Gupta. In recorded conversations, the intelligence officer suggests a deal. If Gupta arranges a murder in New York.
In recorded conversation, because during the interrogation and during the concoction of this plot, they were calling each other's aunts constantly on speakerphone and just explaining what's going on. Each one of them had 20 phone calls during this 15-minute conversation to various members of their family.
The charges against him in India will be dropped. Nikhil Gupta allegedly agrees to broker the killing. So the intelligence officer introduces Nikhil Gupta to a middleman in New York who will arrange the hit. Unknown to the plotters in New Delhi, that man is a double agent who's also working for the U.S. and will reveal all of this to the Americans. Indian intelligence agrees to pay the hitman an advance of $15,000 in cash, payment to be made in a car in New York. From India, Nikhil Gupta contacts the hitman to tell him it's time to carry out the murder. But there's a catch, he says. There should be no killing during the upcoming U.S. visit of Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi. Now the plan is about to go into high gear.
Going to high gear when the 5 minutes after the plan was concocted, they were immediately found out. That's what happened here. There was the murder happened, that they had to unravel a series of clues. It's like the Indian intelligence agency decided we need to do an assassination, and right away everyone knew what they were trying to do. What the fuck?
Very guy he tries to hire who actually works for the FBI.
Imagine like the CIA trying to carry out an assassination plot and then just ringing bells the entire way right as they're coming up with it.
Nikhil Gupta video calls the hitman to tell him that there is a big target in Canada. 2 days later, Gupta confirms, we will be needing one good team in Canada also. 4 days after that, on Father's Day 2023, Hardeep Singh Nijjar is gunned down in Surrey, BC. A few hours later, the Indian intelligence officer sends Gupta a video clip showing Nijjar's bloodied body slumped in his Dodge Ram truck.
I'd strongly suggest that the folks who carried out the assassination took the pictures and sent proof home.
Now it's time for the hit on the New York lawyer. Nikhil Gupta relays the message to the hitman that the killing must be done quickly because there are 3 others in Canada they need to eliminate before the end of the month.
They really can't get off their cell phones, can they? Like, all this should have been done in person. There should have been such an e-trail of all this.
Which one? I bet he sent it on WhatsApp.
Yeah. Basically, it's got arranging an international hit for $15K. These people really do scrape for minimum wage.
He sent it on WhatsApp, and his phone number was still visible to anyone.
Yeah. Public searchable group. Yeah.
You went on Telegram and didn't click the thing that hides your number, and it just everyone knows. Oh, Sean Schaefer says, I need this whole documentary in an Indian accent. Yeah, I think they really dropped the ball on this.
But 10 days later, at the request of the U.S. government, Nikhil Gupta is arrested in the Czech Republic, charged with conspiring to murder the unnamed lawyer in New York. Gupta is currently awaiting extradition. The name of the intended victim in New York is not included in the unsealed indictment. But we now know it was Kripatwant Singh Panu, a man with a bounty on his head. Though he gives interviews over the phone and on video calls from time to time, he rarely meets with journalists in person. Yep. Panu's notoriety comes from angry videos he posts on social media denouncing the Indian government.
Violence begets violence. Is Modi government ready to face the consequences?
Oh no.
Oh man.
You bloody, fuck you bloody, you bloody, bastard, fuck you bloody. That's what it sounds like. That's what it fucking sounds like.
What a great race.
And what we learned during our visit is that the way Panu speaks online and in public
is hilarious.
Quite different from how he speaks in private. Panu is also a close friend of Hardeep Singh Nijjar.
Where did you first meet?
I met Hardeep Singh Nijjar in Surrey, and that was, I think it was 2008. And at that time, we were running a campaign that 1984 anti-Sikh violence was on rights. We wanted the world and the global community to recognize this as a genocide.
The 66-year-old Prime Minister was a victim of gunmen identified as Sikh extremists.
In 1984, Indian...
You know what? We've been going for quite some time, so I understand if we need to get going soon, but even as he's bringing this up, it's like, oh, we're talking about this other fucking Indian thing that we need to educate the world about. It's like, no one needs to know about any of this. So yeah, I just wanted to check out some... Oh, comments are turned off. Look at that.
Wow.
Look at that. I would have loved to see... This was just posted 8 months ago, so... where do we stand on this, 40? If you've been keeping up with this, I'm trying to figure out, have there been any developments in this case, in this assassination attempt, or...
Not that I know of, other than the 6 diplomats are supposedly associated with this situation. Which is why they were expelled. They were expelled for alleged serious criminal activity, and they're fighting a civil war. Basically, they're taking out the most vocal opponents of the Indian government while they're building up resources and finance in Canada. So, and honestly, I think they're a foot in Punjab and they're a foot in Canada. And my gut is that you may see some of them decide to give up on Punjab and try to establish Khalistan somewhere else, because a handful of them are already talking about this. Specifically in Brampton. What's interesting is that somebody in the chat an hour ago posted the 2021 StatsCan demographics of Brampton, and so like I always get it wrong. I thought it was 80%. It's not. It's just over 50%. But like 25% of that 50%, like half of that 50% is all Punjabi. It's not even other Indians. So,
yeah, I think that's the next step, as we've been saying, which is that they're just going to try and get it founded here, perhaps even in New Zealand. I would be surprised if they hadn't made attempts in Australia. I haven't heard of anything yet, but that seems to be their play. Judas, is this anything like that Falun Gong group?
I mean, I don't think the Falun Gong group has any intention of creating a state. They are a cult. They're more similar to Scientology. They're all about just sucking money out of crazy schizos and sticking it to the Chinese government, which is it's one of these things where like it's strange bedfellows. I hate the Chinese too, so that's cool. But Falun Gong are probably, if they were anywhere as near as big as the Chinese, they'd be probably more dangerous. they're fucking insane. So
yeah. So I'm just trying to look ahead to see if this is something we're going to be dealing with, and how this represents an actual threat. Because when you think of mass migration, you think of sort of a dysgenic horde just sweeping over everything. But within that, there is a true political agenda in there. And I think that has the ability to coordinate a lot of the mass around it.
Well, it's like an entire federal political party leader is a literal Khalistani. It's Jagmeet. Jagmeet is not allowed to enter India because he's a Khalistani activist. So they've already infiltrated a number of very prominent positions in Canadian society. The Minister of National Defense, and for some reason people do not understand this, like the Minister of National Defense of all of Canada was a Sikh, Harjeet Singh, and he used his authority and his powers to order spec ops in Kabul to rescue Afghan Sikhs, which he later got on shit for. But the fact of the matter is that they can do this. They're in the government. They literally jockey for power and influence within the Canadian state apparatus. So it's not a joke. they are competing against other ethnic groups for control over different parts of the government and for political parties. What's clear to me now is that they have their claws in the NDP. They're halfway somewhere in the Liberal Party, and obviously Hindus in the and Modi probably are financing the Conservatives.
So you think the Conservatives will be their main targets? Because everyone would assume the NDP is bound up in that, but I think the Conservatives are maybe even more open than the Liberals to this. Would that be fair to say?
I would say so, but not to the Khalistanis, but to the Hindustanis, because there's no reason. Like, if you look at any other ethnic group that Polyev has been associating with in all of his selfies, it's almost exclusively Hindu Indians. It's like it's Gujaratis, it's them from Delhi, and very occasionally it's Tamils, but it's very rarely Punjabis. Like, yeah, Tim Opal is his deputy guy, but like the one group he's appealing to most is just generic North Indians who are Hindu. That's what it seems to me.
Yeah, and honestly, if people want to see where the rubber meets the road on this whole issue, it is in municipal politics. When I was working at an agency in Toronto, we were commissioned by one of our clients, which was he was a local politician. He was a white guy, but he was running for sort of an MPP position in sort of the Greater Toronto area, in an area that was mostly Indians and Browns. And we had to speak very frankly about the issues that he was going to face coming up against the fact that he just wasn't an Indian guy running in this race. And it was sort of a foregone conclusion. It's like, yeah, you can't fucking win this. You can try. But if you want to see, in America, the thing that's really grabbed people's attention is Project 2025 and trying to figure out what parts of the system can you look at to see where the real battles and skirmishes are happening. I really think it's in municipal politics here. Like, you're going to start to see like these groups start to get their own people in power, and you're going to start to see that you can't have any sort of control there. And that's where a lot of the fight is being fought right now. And we talked about it in the context of in China previously, that it was a foregone conclusion for much of my life that it was the Chinese incursion that captured entire parts of the West Coast, especially Ontario. Oh. But I think it's the same story. I think it's because so many Canadians just view these people as either refugees or synonyms for refugees. I mean, they're just people, right? But you can't discuss the Chinese incursion without its intertwining with the CCP and also the triads. It's all bound up together. Oftentimes, the government working hand in glove with the triads.
Mm-hmm. It's like I mentioned at the beginning of the show too. I'm trying to explain this to people who don't understand. Like, they think that I'm pulling some Alex Jones de-radicalization operation where I'm taking the spotlight off of the Israelis and the Jews, and I'm like, no. You do not understand, because we're not the seat of a global empire, and because we don't have the manpower and technology of U.S. law enforcement and agencies, we have not been able to defend against this multipolar world that we now live in, where there are multiple ethnic groups within Canada doing the same fucking thing at the same time. Like, like the Chinese situation. People are like, oh, you're pulling a Fox News. It's the CCP. It's everybody but the Jews. I'm like, no. They used the Hong Kong handover. 60% of the people who came into Vancouver in the 80s were actually CCP shills. They embedded themselves in the business, in Vancouver Metro Van's business sector. They learned how corporations run. They own that whole fucking city, and they're using it to funnel fentanyl, mass-produced in football field size factories, as you yourself covered, Dimes, in Claus the Panda, to distribute fentanyl across North America. They are to fentanyl what cartels are to cocaine. They are that vicious.
Yeah, and we always tell people it can be more than one thing. You can have more than one enemy, because what's interesting is with America, I think a lot of the focus that outside interests have is America is an empire to be infiltrated and harnessed, whereas I think a lot of these groups view Canada just as land to colonize. They don't see the Canadian government as an engine of power they can hijack, but they do see it as a land where they can just get their own thing going and Canadian, like old stock Canadians like us, but also Aboriginals, they just see as in the way, a problem to be dealt with. Similarly to how the Israelis see the Palestinians, in my view. Like I don't think Jews hate Palestinians the way they hate Christians, especially European Christians, as an existential enemy. So I don't even think these groups even fucking hate white Canadians. I just think they see as Tony Montana said, a great big pussy that's waiting to be fucked, and where they're like laughing at us, but they will use this as a launching pad for some other thing, like the Khalistani movement or whatever the fuck China is up to, usually as a launching pad to attack America, which is why America is so concerned about the sovereign integrity of Canada. Anyway, so I know we've been going for over 2.5 hours now, and that's usually when we cap it. I wanted to make sure before we go, people can be directed to your Substack, Fortissax. I'm pulling that up right now. We are looking at Fortissax is typing, fortissax.substack.com. That's where a great many, all of your articles have been published, but especially recently, as you're getting into more and more of these topics, I know it's been an area of focus and discussion for both of us trying to tackle this Indian thing from a serious perspective. We've been shit posting, we've been having a couple laughs on this episode, but if we're to address the problem seriously, I think pay attention to what Fortissax is going to be writing on Substack, and also tuning into your performances on these X Spaces. I've been in the fucking dungeon for too long, brother. It's hard for me to get on a space and not just run my mouth like a sociopath. You do a pretty good job. You and Ferryman's Toll and some of the other guys I've seen on there will put the best face forward.
There seems to be a good cop, bad cop thing going on when both of us are in the space.
Yeah. Which one's the bad? I assume is he the bad cop or you the bad cop?
No, because Ferryman always gives the hard, cold facts, and he says it in a very, very assertive way. Whereas I'm okay, now I'm going to explain why this is, and I'm going to explain here's what's going to happen. Because he will say, people will say, listen, the demographic situation is bad. We are literally facing an existential crisis. Right? And some people are not receptive to we're all going to go extinct. So I'm okay, imagine this. The real issue is not that you're going to go extinct. It's that you're not going to have any representation whatsoever. You're going to go to the hospital. You're going to talk to a cop. You're going to try getting, a repair on your car. The person you're dealing with does not care about you, does not identify with you, does not have the same notions of fairness or equity or any of these things. That is what it means to be a minority. It means you have no representation and no one gives a fuck about you. That's what it means. And some people are more receptive to that because they're whoa, you mean my local bank clerk is gonna twist every rule book to not give me a leg up and not give me a credit increase? Yes. The fact that you take for granted that cops most of the time don't break your knees at a traffic stop, right? That's part of our culture. The fact that we don't have to haggle for prices at a supermarket or at a store, that's an aspect of our culture that these people do not respect. They don't do these things. They engage in barter, right? We don't do that because it's assumed prices are fair. So you explain that to people, you get into the nitty-gritty, they're whoa, holy shit, we have to do something. So there's
See, he'll make all these great points in the X space, and I'll just pop in and say, "Oh yeah, you like Canada? Name 5." All right, so we got to head it off there, people. This has been a phenomenal episode. I'm so happy you could take the time to join us for a sec. Sorry if we kept you from any other pressing business. Judas, as always, I know you're also busy, and I kept you a little bit over the runtime. So
we're fine. We're talking with Fort. We're good.
Oh yeah, it's all good.
All right, so we'll have you back on soon too. But anyway, thank you everyone for tuning in. This has been a great stream. Thank you for all the comments. Really appreciate them, and we'll see you next time.